One Yehong woke up completely alone in a barren ocean wasteland, just a tiny 20 square meter rock. Not even a weed could grow here. The system panel rated Yehong at a combat power of 5. Basically a dead man walking. After a lifetime of being crowded by people, he was actually half relieved. But then he raised a tiny octopus from a bean-sized baby until it grew. He could drill straight into a massive blue shadow octopus and tear it wide open in seconds. This quiet loner had finally built a safe haven and a friend of his own. A bond nobody could ever break. Make sure to subscribe to see what happens next. It is a simple deal, but before any of those insane things happened, he was nothing. Let us start from the very beginning. A string of mechanical chimes suddenly rang in his ears. A massive virtual screen blossomed right in front of him, covered in glowing text. The ocean survival game had officially started, and the screen flashed with survival tips. Every single player would be assigned a completely isolated island somewhere out in the vast sea. Starting at a mere 20 square meters, but fully expandable with the right materials. He could gather resources on his own or travel to the trade city. This allowed players to buy and sell goods freely once he finished basic home construction. He would unlock a teleport pass straight to that bustling city. His island belonged to him alone, completely safe from any greedy players. But the system warned that it was not an absolutely safe haven. Violent sea monsters could crawl up and attack him at any moment. Thankfully, a novice protection period of 24 hours was now active, giving him time to explore everything else at his own steady pace. But there was a catch the system made very clear to him. The protection only stopped monsters from spawning on his rock. It did not actually guarantee his personal safety. Incredibly reassuring, really. Once the robotic voice faded, the huge screen shrank down to a small screen. It was 40 centimeters wide and 30 high, with a blinking return icon in the corner. Yehong tapped it, and the display flipped open to show his personal dashboard. He found 5 clean categories laid out, one in each corner and one centered. The middle displayed his personal info, while chat alerts blinked in the corner. His assets sat on the left, alongside construction menus and the map. He wondered if he had been transported to another dimension entirely, or if this was some alien experiment, given how brief the info was. Everyone was forced onto a ridiculously tiny rock, left with no choice but to build. There was absolutely no escaping it. He looked around his new home. He realized just how tiny this rock truly was, a few steps. That was all it took to reach the edge and tumble straight into the ocean. Yehong quickly looked away from the dark water and inspected his own clothes. He was wearing a plain white tank top, floral shorts, and basic sandals. Even if his gear had been digitized, changing a grown man's outfit. Without asking first felt a little too personal, in his opinion. After grumbling to himself, he finally let his shoulders drop and relaxed. The anxiety about survival was definitely there, and he would not deny it. But deep down, a strange sense of quiet relief washed over him. Leaving his stressful old life behind felt good. His name was Yehong, 19. A healthy, gentle-looking young man, standing at 183 centimeters. He never had a good family. Ever since he could remember, he survived by reading the faces of the people around him, knowing that one wrong move meant he went hungry. Once the law put him in school, the library became the only place he loved simply because it was quiet. At 16, he left school to find work, drifting through several different cities over the next 3 years to learn how other people lived, though he never quite managed to fit in anywhere. He despised having people get too close to him, absolutely hating the ones took his quiet nature as an invitation, claiming they acted for his own good, completely ignoring his constant refusals, just to drag him back into the crowd. But now, standing on a tiny scrap of land in the middle of nowhere, he wondered with some amusement if his old dream of escaping people had finally come true. A system panel suddenly popped up, displaying his personal details, which felt less like stats and more like a harsh reality check. He was island master. Number 9911, named Yehong, with a combat power of just 5, rated as a healthy adult. His island was 20 square meters, flagged as extremely barren, a pathetic little patch where not even weeds could grow. His inventory held 10 slots, all completely empty, while his starting equipment was just a basic, attribute-less 3-piece novice set on his back. Base stats and health checked out were the only real bright spots here, because the actual island Itself was listed as tiny, barren, and completely unable to grow so much as a single weed, which was pretty miserable. He tapped return to open the map, and the island popped up as a three-dimensional model. He could easily zoom and rotate however he liked. On its surface, a small white figure marked his exact current position. A small legend nearby explained what the different icons meant, like miniature houses, supply crates, and symbols for trees, herbs, crops, or ores, though he actually had zero of these resources, since the ground beneath him consisted of nothing but a thin layer of topsoil. Beneath that dirt, which was barely 2 or 3 centimeters deep, lay the hard island. Bedrock, which could neither be farmed nor mined, with absolutely zero starting resources. He noticed a prompt in the bottom corner of the map promising that supplies would refresh 4 times a day. This happened at 6 in the morning, noon, 6 in the evening, and midnight. During each of those windows, the island would reset, spawning at least one new resource or a supply crate. Since he had spawned at 11 in the morning, a few minutes had already slipped by, meaning his very first delivery was less than an hour away. He closed the map and opened the construction menu to see what he could actually build. The cheapest option was area expansion, 1 square meter for 2 soil and 5 stone. After that came island reinforcement, costing 1 cubic meter of 10 soil, 3 weeds, and 3 sawdust. Basic housing required: a level 1 wooden house for 100 wood, 10 straw rope, and 2 grass mats. Or a level 1 stone house costing 100 stone, 10 soil, 4 planks, and 2 grass mats. Finally, a level 1 defense fence needed only 1 wood and 1 straw rope. Ye Hong stood there in the middle of his empty island, owning absolutely none of those resources. Sure, the land expansion needed the absolute fewest materials, but the catch was that any new soil would be just as barren. The rest was just a dead surface where nothing would ever grow. Island reinforcement, as the panel described it, hardened his existing foundation up to level 1, and the reinforced ground gained extra defense, durability, and a chance for a resource. Level 2 appear on top. The wooden house and stone house were both level 1. Buildings that differed only in material, so the choice came down to what he had on hand and his personal preference. Either way, the house was a 4-meter box, 2 meters. To a side, square walls of stone or wood, a pointed roof of wooden planks, and a grass mat draped over it to keep out wind and rain. The fence was a 1-meter protective barrier per unit, wooden planks 10 centimeters wide and a centimeter thick, standing a meter high, wrapped in straw rope with small gaps left between. He could place it on any open ground on the island. None of this was happening on an empty island, so he closed the construction page and switched to personal assets. That just showed him the model of his current island again, plus barren area readout already listed in his personal information. Nothing new. Once he had reviewed everything he could see and was satisfied he understood it, he finally opened the chat interface. He had braced himself for a wall of messages from a planet's worth of players, but instead the channel only ticked over 1 message every few seconds. The reason sat printed across the top. Each player got 1 free message with a limit of 50 characters, and anything over that drained ocean crystal stones, depending on how many messages and characters they burned. Those crystal stones, the notice added, might turn up in level 2 or higher supply crates and might drop when he killed a marine creature. Reading that, he understood the situation at once. It was not that everyone was acting reasonable, it was that most players were too afraid of the cost to post, or had already spent their 1 free line and now sat in silence. The player count printed beside the channel name made him freeze. More than 19 billion. He counted it, then counted. Talk about an insane crowd, and it still came out to a number several times larger than the entire population of the world he used to live in. That many people, and the feed still moved 1 quiet line at a time. The messages themselves were the same shape over and over, each person describing what they had been doing the instant they were pulled in. Someone was bored out of their mind on a restricted empty island, asking where everyone came from. Another player hit the character limit mid-sentence, picking it up in a second line, naming their home and hunting for anyone nearby. One was driving at a construction site and woke up here the moment they got in the car. Another was printing documents during late overtime. Another had just stood up from a blind date to go see a movie when the world swapped out beneath them. And one had simply been called on by a teacher to solve a problem in class. He scrolled. Never found a single person trying to reach family or friends, only people venting their fear and worry, plenty of it laced with pure anger. Every player in the channel was nothing more than a string of numbers, no names, no profile. Pictures, there was no way to add friends, and no way to view another. Player's information, when he scrolled back to the history, he found only the most recent 100 messages survived, each new one shoving the oldest off the end. Into nothing, noon arrived, and a new notification dropped onto the chat. Mechanical voice buzzes in his ear, announcing that the island resources have finally refreshed. His luck actually holds up this time, as two supply crates suddenly spawn nearby. One lands to his left, the other to his right, as the glowing screen shrinks down. It floats right over his shoulder, the exact second he turns his gaze away. Since his tiny island has nowhere to hide, finding them requires zero effort. They are just cheap, moldy wooden crates sitting right there on the dark ground. Up close, he realizes those dark splotches are actually thick patches of nasty mold. It looks hideous, but looks do not matter when it comes to free survival gear. A rotten shell could still hold top-tier loot, so he kneels to open it. Inside are 3 soil, 3 stone, 10 wood, 10 weed, 1 bread, and 1 water. The items fly into his inventory as the moldy crate crumbles. Decent variety, but not nearly enough. Fortunately, the second crate holds a bit more. It drops 8 soil, 10 stone, 8 wood, 9 weed, 2 bread, and 1 water. It is a slightly better haul, but even combined, his resources are seriously lacking. He is still miles away from building a proper house. He grabs some bread first. The palm-sized loaf feels heavy, and taking a bite proves it is incredibly dry. It has zero flavor. Next, he opens a 500 milliliter bottle of water. The moment he twists the cap, a 6-hour countdown timer suddenly appears. It will vanish soon whether he drinks it or not, another cheap system trick. The disposable bottle will dissolve out of existence the second it is empty. Putting his gear aside for a moment, he opens up the world chat again. One player got 40 pieces of wood, but lacks any rope to build with. Another confused player is asking what in the world sawdust is even used for. They want to fortify their island and have wood, but no sawdust to finish. Where there are questions, answers usually follow, and he watches the chat closely. After getting the hang of it, he pulls 1 unit of weed from his inventory. It is a meter-tall handful of grass, and a blue prompt instantly pops up. The translucent box registers the basic weed as a level 1 crafting material. The system explains that level 1 materials can undergo simple processing. He taps the flashing button, and 3 crafting options unfold before him. He can make 1 straw rope from 2 weed, or a mat using 20. He stores the weeds back inside and pulls out a single piece of wood. The unprocessed dry log is 2 meters tall and 20 centimeters thick. His options are grinding 1 wood into 2 sawdust or pressing wood into planks. The sawdust recipe makes sense, but the plank recipe seems a bit bizarre. He honestly cannot figure out how 2 massive logs shrink down into 1 plank. Maybe the system grinds them down first before compressing them into boards. Either way, it is time to stop overthinking and actually start building. He has 10 soil left over, plenty of weed, and only needs 3 sawdust. His plan is to fortify 1 cubic meter of his island first. Processing 2 logs gets him 4 sawdust, giving him 11 soil and 19 weed. He easily meets the system requirements of 10, 3, and 3. He selects a spot near the southern edge and taps his finger on it. A glowing 3-dimensional marker locks instantly into place. The interface confirms that his first level 1 fortification is complete. That added 1 cubic meter of defense plus 10, with fertility at level 1 for weeds or small trees to grow on the plot. The dirt thickened and settled down, the loose drifting dust finally turning into real, solid soil. He sat beside the patch, hoping for grass, went back to monitoring the chat, and took notes on any valuable info while he waited. After more than half an hour, sprouts broke through the dirt. System prompts labeled them as weed seedlings, harvestable in 1 hour. These weeds did not even require planting, they just grew on their own. Ready in an hour, which suited him fine. He watched 1 sprout, then another, then a third. Before the first even matured, a dozen pushed through. 12 weeds packed into that single square meter. The fortification sat as a 1 cubic meter cube underground, while the only accessible part was the 1 meter surface area. The rest was buried defense. The island would activate whenever sea creatures attacked. Feeling a quiet surge of excitement, he kept monitoring the chat and let the hour slip by. When the system finally flagged the first weed as level When and fully mature, he reached out, gripped it by the roots, and pulled with a sudden tug. One weed gained, one experience point. Instantly his level screen registered, his personal stats unlocked. The system panel now listed 4 separate skills under his name. Hunting was at level 0, fishing at level 0, gathering at level 0 with 1 experience out of 100, and planting at 0. Absolutely everything starting from square one. No one in the chat had even hinted at this yet. He seriously doubted it was because they missed it. Most kept quiet. They wanted to stay ahead, or they already used their daily limit. 1 daily message and could not post. 11 weeds still remained in that square meter since they did not grow at the same speed. He watched for readiness, pulling them up one by one. 12 experience points and 12 weeds total, plus after a 30-minute cooldown, a fresh batch sprouted in that exact spot. Having 0 dirt left to build another defense, he simply stood watch over this single patch, harvesting a full crop roughly every 2 hours, from noon until 6 in the evening. The number of weeds popping up was totally random, and he harvested 39 total for 39 experience. Right at 6 p.m., the island refreshed, and get this, right where he had cleared those plants, a small tree materialized out of thin air. A neat-looking wooden supply crate sat right at its base, while 2 more dull, grayish-black boxes spawned on the bare ground nearby. He cracked open those 2 ugly containers first, pulling basic supplies as predicted, then returned to the tree to open the polished wooden crate. This was a level 2 chest. The contrast here was absolutely night and day. Felling axe, flint, 28 dirt, 53 stone, 40 wood, 46 weeds, 2 pieces of jam-filled bread, 6 berries, and 3 water bottles fell into his hands. The axe was meant for chopping wood with a base durability of 100, each heavy strike cost 1 to 3 durability, while other tough objects could wear it down faster. Depending on toughness, this flint was a level 2 special ore, crucial for forging weapons or combining with iron ore to create a handy fire lighter. The berries were a common level 1 fruit, edible raw or useful as a cooking ingredient. As for the jam-filled bread, it was sweet sliced bread to boost his energy. After inspecting his loot, he stored it all away and prepared. He carried the axe over to the small tree, the panel marked for felling. He swung at the trunk near the ground, the axe biting in, earning 1 wood and 1 gathering experience. Checking his slots, he saw the wood count had gone up by 1. Then looked back at the tree, which had a single notch but still stood there exactly as before, leaving him blinking in confusion. He had assumed a unit of wood meant a whole log, since this little tree was only 20 centimeters across. But despite taking some wood, the tree still needed cutting. Finding this more amusing than frustrating, he kept swinging, stroke after stroke, as wood and experience ticked up, until after 15 units of wood, the tree vanished, suddenly leaving a pile of branches at his feet. His 10 inventory slots were already full, so the branches simply scattered on the ground, and when he picked one up to look, he realized it was the crown coming down after the trunk was gone. The branch was a level 1 material, processable into 1 portion of sawdust or burnable as fuel. Nothing remarkable next to wood, but useful enough. A glance at his panel showed combat power still at 5. Gathering now at level 0 with 59 of 100, all 10 slots crammed with flint, soil, stone, wood, weed, bread, water, sawdust, jam-filled bread, and berries. The axe in his hand, loose branches on the dirt, still 5 wood short of a small wooden hut, and with no refresh due, he had to find a way around it, so he ground the 5 branches into 5 sawdust and stored them. Then he opened island reinforcement again and hardened another 2 cubic meters beside the first patch, which ate 20 soil, 6 weed, and 6 sawdust. Clearing the sawdust out and freeing a slot, he put the axe away, knowing no creature was coming onto this speck of an island for now. All he had to do was watch the clock and harvest wild weed every couple of hours. It was past 7:50 and the sky had gone full dark. The waves breaking around him carried strange noises from things moving in the sea. With 3 patches of grass growing now, this patch gave him 31 weeds and 31 experience. After pulling them, he sat cross-legged on the dirt to take a short nap. His eyes had barely closed when a different sprout poked up from one of the patches, a tree this time, and through the night its trunk and branches twisted up fast. The rustle of leaves in the wind woke him, the round moon just lifting into the eastern sky. He looked at the level 1 small tree under that cold light and smiled, because a tree meant wood, and enough wood meant a house, even with a novice protection period running. Sitting on a Scrap this small with the waves and the sea things hissing all around still left. Him feeling exposed, he wanted walls. The tree took the same span the weeds. To grow, and only one could stand on a single square meter, by 9:30. It had hit its limit and turned harvestable, so he swung the axe and the first wood dropped into his slot. For the house that was almost his, he chopped away gladly, and after 11 wood, the tree disappeared, leaving 3 scattered branches behind his house. Finally, he stopped fussing over experience and leveling and got the materials ready. 2 weed made 1 straw rope, and he needed 10, 20 weed, and 20 weed made 1 grass mat, and he needed 2, so another 40, and he had extra weed, with 106 wood, 10 straw rope, and 2 grass mat against requirements of 110 and 2. The level 1 wooden house was finally. The 3 reinforced patches offered extra defense, but he hated wasting them on a house. So he opened his construction menu and placed the blueprint on the open northern ground instead. The plan was for a tiny box, only 4 square meters in total. As the dust settled, there it stood, a simple square wooden house. It was just 2 meters on each side, with a grass mat covering the south-facing roof. Since the front wall was so narrow, a simple wooden door took up half the space. This flimsy door stood 2 meters tall, right next to a tiny window half a meter wide. With his basic shelter complete, a system notification popped up to deliver a special novice gift pack. Because his inventory was completely full, the item could not be stored directly. Instead, a little red box with a yellow ribbon dropped right into his hands. He popped the package open, and his tiny island suddenly overflowed with rewards. 2 new inventory slots unlocked, along with a teleport pass and 10 crystal stones. Next came 4 massive processing tables, each taking up some serious space. They were 2 meters long and over a meter high, starting with a semi-finished goods table. He also got an equipment table, a furniture table, and a food table. Massive stations spawned all over, with some even dangling dangerously over the open water. Seeing his precious gear about to sink forced him to open his build menu immediately. Luckily, he had plenty of basic resources like soil and stone ready to go. Having 86 stone and 23 soil, he easily met the tiny upgrade requirements. Without wasting a second, he expanded his island by 10 square meters in a semicircle. Now his workbenches were safe. Talk about a stressful way to learn a basic survival lesson. He stashed a few items inside his new home, then headed back outside. After gathering all 4 massive tables, he carefully arranged them around his cabin. With the layout sorted, he turned his attention to clearing out the remaining weeds. Clearing them earned him 21 weeds and 21 much-needed experience points. His gathering experience hit 125, allowing him to finally level up. This upgrade boosted his combat power, resetting his progress bar for the next milestone. The change was instant, and he could feel a sudden surge of physical power. When he gripped his axe and swung, the raw speed and strength felt incredible. Even his senses felt sharper. His combat stats had only gone up by 1. But since he started with only 5, that single point was a fifth of his total power. The catch, the experience needed for his next level up, had just doubled. Now it was time to check what these crafting tables could actually produce. Walking down the line, he noticed the basic material table held the absolute essentials. Things like straw rope, turf, sawdust, wooden planks, and simple wooden sticks. Everything else was locked behind recipes he still had to find. Over at the equipment station, he could craft straw shoes and basic tools. This included a straw hat, a grass basket, and even a fishing rod. The furniture list only had a wooden bed, while the food table offered jam bread. Everything was strictly level 1 stuff, using the starter blueprints he was given. If he wanted better gear, he would have to hunt down advanced recipes. There was no shortcutting the system without learning the right blueprint first. He decided to craft a bed first, because sleeping on dirt was getting old. Plus, the system furniture actually granted some pretty sweet bonus effects. Building the bed required 5 wooden planks and 2 straw ropes, taking 10 minutes. Resting on it gave a 5% stamina boost, but there was a catch. It needed 2 wood per plank, and he only had 6 wood in his inventory. So the bed had to wait. Instead, he examined his basic 3-piece starter outfit. It was not cold, but the oversized undershirt, baggy shorts, and flimsy slippers looked absolutely ridiculous. Luckily, he could craft some simple straw shoes with 50 weeds, and a 3-minute wait to gain +1 speed and +1 defense. With a durability of 175 weeds on hand, he started crafting. While they crafted, he browsed the rest of the menu. There was almost nothing else he could build yet. For weapons, he only had a basic wooden stick, which required 10 wood he lacked. The fishing rod and fish basket were for fishing gear, but that level 1 rod needed coarse thread he had not found yet. 3 minutes later, the craft finished, and at the equipment table, something floated. New straw shoes hovered gently inside a bright ball of glowing light. He took them, the screen displaying level 1 equipment with +1 speed. He squeezed them in his hands. The weave felt rough but actually quite sturdy. He kicked off his awful slippers right away and slipped the new shoes on. The moment his feet slid in, his starter slippers vanished completely. They dissolved into thin air, and his new shoes felt absolutely amazing. He even hopped up and down a few times just to enjoy the feeling. It was clear that beginner gear vanished forever once swapped, which was fine. He was already looking forward to crafting a bed once midnight arrived. The refresh would finally give him wood, and he wondered if it would feel as good as these shoes. He checked the chat channel to see the latest gossip. Just before midnight, he quickly harvested 28 weeds that had sprouted in his soil. With his experience updated, there were only 8 minutes left on the clock. Leaning against the rough wooden wall outside, he watched the chat move. The messages began to race by faster as midnight grew closer. It was scrolling way too quickly for him to read, so he closed the screen and opened his inventory instead, remembering the 2 unopened gift packs he still had. He had forgotten about them while moving furniture. The first item was a crystal, a beautiful teardrop gem containing ocean energy, the common currency here. He examined it briefly before pocketing it. The second item was a strange card. It looked like his old identification card, showing a city map on the front. The back showed a full-body hologram of him, along with his player number. This Trade City Teleport Pass was a unique item that allowed fast travel. It cost 10 ocean crystals to visit, but returning to his island was free. Basically, he had a personal portal to the city whenever he wanted. He could travel right now, though he had no real reason or money to. With exactly 10 crystal stones, going now would just be a massive waste. Besides, he was low on resources and did not even know what to buy. Then midnight arrived. The 3 soil patches he cleared 10 minutes earlier sprouted instantly, giving him 2 small trees and 8 fresh weeds. 3 supply crates also dropped. A level 1 container landed on the grass. The other 2 crates landed on his roof and workstation. Talk about bad spawn luck. Shrugging, he grabbed some wood to knock them down. He dragged the crate off the roof, dropping it down to open it first. Inside, he found a handy pickaxe alongside 20 soil, 33 stone, 61 wood, 45 weeds, 2 bread, and 3 water, no ore. None had refreshed yet. He put the pickaxe inside. The cabin, that level 2 chest resting on the processing table, was incredibly generous. 6 ocean crystal stones, a level 1 fishing rod, 3 level 1 bait, 30 soil, 48 stone, 26 wood, 39 weed, 5 pieces of bread, and 4 water. The level 1 chest on the ground only held the usual basic resources. Having no room in his inventory, he put the rod inside the cabin as well. His pack now carried his pass, 16 ocean crystals, flint, 3 baits, 58 soil, 102 stone, 102 wood, and 144 weed, 13 bread, 16 water, 2 sweet jam breads, and 6 berries. Every single slot was full. Once more, he ate a sweet jam bread and drank water until full, then went to chop trees. The 3 small patches gave him 22 wood, 7 branches, and 8 weeds. He cleared the patches, deciding to build the basic wooden bed. First, 5 wooden planks and 2 straw ropes cost 10 wood and 4 weeds to refine. To process, requiring another 10 minutes to fully finish. While it processed, he pulled materials. 20 soil and 50 stone expanded his island to 40 square meters. Leaving him 38 soil, he could have expanded the area further, but for actual progress, he knew he could not just chase raw size. He had to improve quality as well, so with 38 soil, plenty of weeds, and 9 sawdust ground from 7 branches and a log, he reinforced 3 more cubic meters on top of the current foundation. Only level 1 reinforced ground would actually spawn new plants and reward him with gathering experience and materials. By the time the layout was adjusted, bed done, resting on it gave a 5% stamina boost. Durability was a low 30. He ate some jam bread, hauled the bed inside, and set it right against the wooden wall. It fit snugly at 60 centimeters wide and a full 2 meters long. Since those planks were rough, he made a straw mat to go with it. 100 Weed spent over 3 minutes created a mattress, adding another 5% to stamina recovery. 3 minutes later, he spread the mat over the frame and lay down. The immediate difference he felt was completely real, yet sleep wouldn't come at all. He assumed he would drift off quickly, but his body relaxed while his mind remained wide awake, restless and oddly energized. Lying there was useless. He opened the global chat to read. He scrolled through the dark. Even with a one-message limit per person, it was lively. The lucky players, whom everyone was already calling lucky European emperors, were being warned to stop bragging, while the struggling players couldn't even scrape together 100 wood. One guy only had a single level 1 chest and 26 pieces of wood total, asking how long a simple cabin was supposed to take to build. Someone else confirmed that reinforced plots would spawn weeds or small trees after 30 idle minutes. Another person had reinforced 2 plots but got ore piles they could not mine. Without a proper pickaxe, one player had the tool but no ore, while a bunch of lucky players boasted about building cozy cabins, 50 square meters of territory, and 5 reinforced plots. He watched the chat scroll by and slowly grew drowsy, thinking right before sleep took him. Perhaps his luck wasn't bad. He slept for just 1 hour and 3 minutes. Waking up past 1:40 a.m., he grabbed his axe, opened the door, and the 3 small trees growing among the weeds across his plots made the chilly night breeze feel almost welcoming. After all, a solid foundation was everything. Before he can extract anything more, wood splinters fly as the chopping rings out, filling his inventory. Branches and weeds follow. 6 patches yield 23 wood, 11 branches, 31 weeds, and 65 gathering experience. His gathering stands at 155, 45 points short of leveling. His axe has little durability left. He retreats inside, shuts the door, lies down, and quickly drifts off this time. Waking up half an hour later, he checks the clock and falls back asleep. Around 3:40, he climbs up and clears the weeds off all 6 patches quickly. 59 weeds and 59 experience points push his gathering past 200. It levels up to level 2. Combat power increases by 1. The bar resets to 14 out of 400, making the climb even steeper. With no alarm clock and zero desire to miss a harvest, he lies back down. From early morning until just before 6, his sleep comes in fragments. Harvest at 1:50, another at 3:40, another at 5:30. At 5:30, he pulls 33 wood, 10 branches, and 25 weeds, and his axe finally breaks. The small tree is left covered in cracks but stubbornly standing until he kicks it down. Trees knocked over by foot still yield materials, though under normal conditions you could never bring one down that way unless it is already chopped to its limit. By then the sky begins to brighten and he does not lie back down. 6 in the morning, and the orange-red sun climbs the eastern horizon as a new round of supplies refreshes. Among the 6 patches, one holds a pile of stones over half a meter high, his first ore pile, marked as level 1 and requiring an iron pickaxe to harvest. He leaves it for now and opens the crates first. 2 appear this morning, one level 1 and one level 2. The level 1 yields the usual basics, but the level 2 is packed. 5 ocean crystal stones, a felling axe, 1 horse thread, 21 soil, 42 stone, 44 wood, 35 weed, 10 berries, and 2 water. Crystal stones are a massive stroke of luck, as are the axe and thread, but what he wants most right now is the soil. With 35 more, he can reinforce 3 more cubic meters of the island, not just for the surface to grow crops, but for the entire island's safety, since this foundation layer is the only thing he can actually reinforce. 30 soil, 9 weed, and 9 sawdust. Later, the new reinforcement is complete, and he finally starts gathering. He pulls the weeds, chops the small trees, and swings his iron pickaxe into the ore pile. Across all 6 patches, he harvests 18 weeds, 38 wood, 13 branches, 9 stones from the ore, and 2 iron ores. Iron ore is a level 2 material with a small chance to appear in level 1 piles. Pure luck dictates the outcome here. The higher an item's quality grade, the more experience points it yields. Level 2 iron ore gives 5 points each. Those 2 provide 10 on their own. Combined with the rest, this wave brings in 88 gathering experience. The novice protection countdown shows a little over 5.5 hours remaining, ticking down since he entered this world at 11 in the morning. He sits down with simple bread and water for breakfast, the sandwich bread already gone from the night before. Now he holds the chewy plain loaf in one hand and water in the other, walking slowly toward the island's edge. The salty sea breeze washes over him, the wild waves that crashed all night lie calm under the morning. Light as far as his eyes can see, there is only ocean. He eats slowly, wondering if all players share this vast sea, or if everyone is isolated in there. His space was completely untouched, after staring blankly at the water for several minutes. He saw a chat post about someone landing a rare material while fishing. That gave him an idea. He had never actually fished, but the post about a level 2 item pulled from the sea had other players chiming in with tips. With absolutely nothing else to do, he was willing to give it a shot. The level 1 rod caught level 1 to level 2 items, consumed 1 bait per cast, and had a durability of 10, which other players said meant 10 casts before. It broke 3 baits left. Durability did not matter. He spent 50 weed to weave a grass basket, a basic level 1 fish container, then took his gear to the edge, hooked the bait, cast it in. The seawater rippled. The rod was crude, a 2-meter slender pole with a piece of coarse thread tied to the tip, a small hook on the end, and a wooden ball threaded onto the line just above the hook, acting as a float. Crude meant it was terrible at luring fish, so he sat there watching the chat channel. While keeping a close eye on the water, the float twitched and the rod gave a faint pull. He flicked his wrist, yanked it up. The panel flashed, stating he got 1 ocean's gift and 1 fishing experience. He looked at the small glass bottle now sitting inside his woven grass basket, wondering if someone out there was leaving messages in bottles. This is getting interesting. But since it counted as a gift, he decided to open it. He grabbed the 10-centimeter glass bottle, pulled the stopper, and slid out the rolled paper. The bottle vanished as he grabbed the palm-sized note. The paper contained a survival tip telling him to quickly expand his island's area, because at 100 square meters his island's safety would receive a massive boost. The writing broke into glowing characters and flew straight into his virtual screen. His chat interface automatically switched over to the game notification category, where a bookmark icon popped up. Clicking it revealed a fresh list containing this single gift. 100 square meters then. It seemed certain development milestones had to be reached before he could advance to the next stage. He rebaited the hook and cast again, marveling at how this world built helpful hints into his progression. He waited over 10 minutes before the float finally sank. His fishing was successful. 1 small crab plus 1 fishing experience point. Inside the basket, the fingertip-sized crab crawled frantically, unable to escape. This was a level 1 marine creature, according to the system, that could be turned into food or processed into bait. Though incredibly tiny, any catch was useful, but he had no idea how many it would take to make a decent meal. Besides, he had no cooking recipes or formulas to process it, so he left it alone, putting on his last bait. He cast the line once more. This time, he waited so long that the weed and soil had almost matured before the float finally sank. Another successful catch, netting a level 2 flower pot and 5 more fishing experience points. The round pot, 20 centimeters deep and 30 across, appeared right on the basket's edge. Honestly, talk about some crazy luck for his very first try. Recalling how other players claimed they had fished up survival crates in stone, he realized that in this survival world, literally anything was possible. That special pot holds level 2 soil. Once filled, its true use unlocks. He can grow level 1 and 2 crops, proving farming here is demanding. These items are absolutely vital, though he still has no clue where to find that soil. No matter what, it is good stuff. Next, his 3 baits are spent. He heads inside. Lacking any formula, he leaves the tiny crab alone. It goes in the grass basket, which keeps creatures alive for 24 hours. After setting the pot aside with his other gear, he steps back out to work. Time to clear weeds and chop trees. Now 9 farm patches are ready. He might even find ore. Today's harvest is massive, 2 trees yielding 24 wood, plus 5 branches and 69 weeds across 7 spots, earning 97 experience points. Once everything is cleared, he checks the chat channel and reviews his current inventory. He decides it is the perfect moment to check out the bustling trade city. Since his novice protection is still active, he has plenty of time to return. He must return before 11. Teleporting costs him 10 rare ocean crystal stones. The world swaps in an instant. No nausea, no dizziness, he is completely fine. He finds himself standing inside a massive city filled with towering, grand structures. Beautiful landscapes stretch out. Everywhere he looks, other novice players crowd the streets. Dressed in starter gear, some eagerly yell greetings to total strangers. Others watch cautiously, wide-eyed and wondering if any of this is real. He feels exactly the same way, completely shell-shocked, but he cannot afford to stand around. Following his map, he heads directly toward the tallest and most imposing building ahead. This giant structure is the main trade market. He quickly climbs up the stone steps, passing through the grand gate into an entrance hall larger than a city park. He steps inside. Instantly, a mechanical system notification rings. "You must bind your identity." A translucent screen rises. Hovering before his eyes, the menu asks for a simple fingerprint scan to confirm. As soon as he presses it, the system loudly welcomes Island Master 9911. The system officially logs his first arrival, unlocking his access to the entire database. He can now track his exact position and view basic details about the market. The blue screen shifts to display a massive blueprint. Wherever he looks, labels pop up. The colossal trade market spans 9 full floors, each containing different facilities. To gain access to the upper levels, he must spend a specific amount first. The restriction for the second floor is steep, requiring a massive transaction history. He needs to spend 10,000 ocean crystal stones just to climb those stairs. For now, the first floor is split into 6 distinct zones around this hall. 5 massive arches lead to sales, recycling, appraisals, auctions, and the player stalls. Each gateway is clearly marked, directing players to their desired business zones. The map outlines every detail. The official sales area acts as the main system shop. Stock refreshes every single hour, and items cost standard crystal stones. Everything here is completely randomized, from the item types to their actual prices. Once a rare item sells out, he must wait for the next hourly update. The recycling zone buys player gear at 70% of its average auction price. It is a terrible deal, meant only for desperate players who need quick cash. Meanwhile, the appraisal area charges crystals to identify locked, mysterious equipment. The system warns that high-tier items are not guaranteed to be actually useful. Once appraised, the auction zone allowed players to list items at a starting price calculated by a quick scan, running for a duration of their choice. The longer the listing stayed up, the higher the fee. Meanwhile, the stall area let players rent 1 cubic meter booths using crystal stones to set up their own private exchanges, either paying for an automated hosting service or staffing the stall themselves to negotiate prices. Person, map in hand, he walked straight into the busy stall area. Auction house was convenient, but nobody had many crystal stones yet, and what he needed was soil, a basic island expansion material, so a stall suited him better. Past the gate stood rows upon rows of partition booths, each only a single cubic meter with 2-meter pathways running between them, buzzing with players coming and going though not yet packed. The chaotic shouting hit him first, sellers hawking soil at 1 crystal stone a pop, buyers shouting for wood and any basic materials. Others yelling for fish, bait, shrimp, crabs, and literally any kind of meat. Even bugs. The one saving grace here was the strict rules: no fighting allowed and no getting too close to other players, and though the noise gave him a massive headache, he was incredibly grateful for the safety zone keeping people out of arm's reach, which suited him perfectly compared to almost anyone else, with only 30 minutes left before he had to return. He scanned the stalls near the gate one by one. Someone was selling 100 wood for 2 weed each, another offering 200 weed at 1 wood per weed, and someone else offering 3 iron ore for 50 wood or weed each, while a buyer wanted 100 wood, offering 10 wood per soil, weed, or stone. Another buying 30 soil and offering 5 wood, weed, or stone per unit, and someone selling 3 level 1 bait at 2 soil each. Each stall could post at most 2 buy or sell orders and display up to 3 exchange items. After a while, he had the average market rates. 1 soil went for roughly 7 wood, weed, or stone. Few players listing items absurdly cheap, but most sticking to the middle ground, passing an empty stall. He checked the rental terms: 2 transaction slots for 1 crystal stone per hour, with all goods returned automatically when the rental expired, plus an offline hosting feature for an extra crystal stone hourly that delivered sold goods to the seller and shipped unsold inventory straight back. If he chose to sell in person, items reverted to his inventory upon closing, and if his slots were completely full, they would be stored at the stall gate for a paid pickup, with holding fees rising the longer they sat there. Anything left unclaimed for 3 days would simply recycle. The game clearly wanted to prevent players from treating stalls like free storage, especially since with Limited inventory space, players would definitely be tempted to stash their hoard forever. With a dozen minutes left until 11, he rented a stall, losing one crystal stone on the spot. He wanted soil and absolutely nothing else, so he set both active lines to buying soil. One buying 40 soil for 7 wood each, the other buying 36 soil at 7 wheat each. Listing the wood and weeds separately so the stall wouldn't shut down halfway through. Just because one resource ran dry, even if all his wood sold out, the weed would keep. The booth active, with exchange prices set, 280 wood and 252 weed left. His inventory immediately, and he purchased 1 hour of hosting for 2 crystal stones total. Then turned to leave the market and activated the direct teleport home from the gate at 11 o'clock sharp. The global announcements flashed. The novice protection period was officially over, and the brutal ocean survival game had begun. Marine life can attack at any time, the system warns him to strengthen his island foundation, expand his area, ready his weapons, and struggle to survive in this endless sea. That danger was approaching, and he had no other choice. Comforting as always, he stood on the island, which looked exactly the same, and looked out at the sea. It was quiet as before, a soft breeze and not even a wave. The channel told a different story. Plenty of players were already reporting attacks, fish gnawing at their foundation stone, octopus tentacles hauling themselves up onto islands, fish in the water spitting at people. He held a wooden stick, a level 1 weapon. Blunt damage +1, weapon strength +1, durability 100 that he had crafted before setting up a trade city and taken in hand on his return, and he looked around to confirm there was no danger before going back to the front of the house. The threat was clearly random then and spawned where it pleased. Just as he had decided nothing was coming, an attack notification popped. His island foundation on the east side under assault. He carried the stick over and found a large crab at the edge of the foundation, waving its claws, climbing up, jabbing at the stone of his island. The panel named it a level 1 sea crab. Health 100, one of the more common creatures in the ocean. Its claws dangerous, and now it had set its sights on his island. It was grayish, its shell larger than a fist, and where it had climbed up, he could see a few small scratches scored into the foundation. Not broken yet, but if he let it keep knocking, that stone might well take damage and vanish. He did not bother with the stick. He took out a branch, tested its weight, crouched, slipped it under the crab, and scooped sharply upward, flinging the thing that had been knocking on his foundation more than 10 meters into the air before it could strike. Again, it fell from that height and smashed onto the barren surface, only shallow topsoil and stone to land on, and a red -100 flashed over it. Killed level 1 sea crab. The panel read, hunting experience +1, level 1 crab claw +2, level 1 crab shell +1, so it actually worked. He had assumed killing it at the edge would just knock it into the sea, and that gathering from a carcass would be near impossible out in the water, but instead the fall itself had done the job. Branch in one hand, stick in the other, he looked at the claws and shells scattered on the dirt, gathered them up, and went to put them in the house since his inventory was still full, and the drops had landed on the ground rather than in a slot, counting as an attack. This also let him lean against the wall and open the map to check his island, where he could see the crack in the foundation had not closed, and a scratch mark now sat above the spot. The initial island foundation, the panel explained, could not have its damage repaired directly, but the damage would clear automatically when the area was reinforced. With no level, it could not be repaired, so he had to wait for reinforcement and a second attack before then would carry the existing damage forward and break the stone faster. He closed the map and went to gather the weed already mature, wood branch, and after clearing all 9 plots, he had 111 gathering experience, 33 wood, 7 branch, and 71 weed. He had just ground the branch into sawdust when a notification popped up, an email from Trade City that automatically extracted its contents the moment he opened it. 76 bags of soil, the items he had been buying on the market, had all traded successfully, closing down his temporary stall. The soil he wanted had completely sold out in under an hour, forcing an early closure, and looking at the 81 soil blocks now in his inventory, he decided to wait for the noon resource refresh before deciding whether to expand his island or reinforce it, since midday was just around the corner. As the screen cleared, he looked at the 4 chest icons on his map and could not wipe the grin off his face. 4 supply crates were waiting, 2 level 1 and 2 level 2. the first level 2 box gave. 8 ocean crystals, 1 flint, 31 soil, 36 stone, 42 wood, 42 weed, and 1 gem-filled bread, 2 berries, and 1 water bottle. The second level 2 crate excited him. Way more because it contained a level 1 bait recipe and a level 1 storage box. Recipe exactly what he needed, plus more soil, stone, wood, weed, and water. He learned both recipes immediately, then popped open the 2 level 1 crates for another 18. Soil, 23 stone, 25 wood, 35 weed, 2 bread, and 2 water. His inventory now held 19 ocean crystals, some thread, 149 soil, 217 stone, and 138 wood, 194 weed, 1 gem-filled bread, 15 bread, 23 water, 18 berries, and 37 sawdust, the iron ore from earlier, and the flint that had spilled onto the ground were safely stored inside. Looking at all that soil and the 3 fresh ore piles just respawned, reaching a 100 square meter island did not seem so impossible anymore. The iron pickaxe was losing durability fast. He had mined 3 ore piles already and it was down to 6 points, meaning he would be stranded if more ore appeared because trees could easily be kicked down after being notched to pieces, but hard ore veins would not yield a single stone if he tried to pry them with his bare hands. Those 3 piles had rewarded him with 33 stones and 3 iron ore. That haul brought him a total of 48 gathering experience. After clearing them, there were still 2 trees and 4 weed plots nearby, and harvesting those gave 20 wood, 5 branches, 46 weed, and 71 gathering experience. He opened the construction panel. His island sat at 40 square meters, needing 60 more to reach 100, and while he had soil to spare, he was still 10 square meters short on stone. Even short, he decided to expand anyway, hoping things would balance out. After opening the nightly supply crates, following less than a minute of hesitation, he decided to expand the area by 50 square meters, 100 soil. And 250 stones gone, the island expanded. 90 square meters was only larger by comparison, though, in plain terms, it was still a tiny space. He had to admit he was a bit obsessive. If resources existed, he wanted every last drop of them, and if he had materials, he wanted to use them to make his home safer. He wandered the edge of his newly expanded island with a wooden stick, grumbling about having nothing to do, half hoping some cultivation system would suddenly pop up to kill time. Then he checked the processing table to inspect those 2 recipes from the crate. Bait was crafted at the food processor, and the level 1 recipe required a single level 1 marine creature limb, either caught from the sea or dropped by a monster. He had a small crab, 2 claws, and 1 crab shell back home, so he carried them over and crafted 4 slightly different portions of bait. He wanted to fish but was in no rush, so he stepped to the crafting table for the other recipe. The level 1 storage box took 100 wood in 10 seconds, a 1x1 box with a built-in 6-slot storage cabinet, each holding up to 999 of an item. As a basic household storage tool, it was something he desperately needed, so with 158 wood on hand, he crafted it on the spot and placed it inside. 5 iron ore, 2 flint, 15 bread, 23 water, 18 berries, and 1 coarse thread went into the box's 6 slots. Storing them cleared 6 spaces in his inventory in an instant. He dropped the level 1 bait inside, grabbed his fishing rod and fish basket, and walked back to the edge of the island. The chat had turned pretty grim while he worked. Someone had noticed the player count, panicking that in just an hour it had dropped by over 500, asking if everyone was really in such danger, but another shrugged it off. 19.5 billion players and a few hundred dead, asking if that was even a lot. A third did the math. Over 590 minutes, about 400 an hour, 10,000 a day, and a fourth took the numbers further. 10,000 a day against 19.5 billion players comes to nearly 2 million days, asking again if that was actually a lot. Fifth player cut through the noise, pointing out that everyone called this just a beginning, yet people were already dying, asking those who shrugged it off if they truly believed only others would die. As he cast his line, the whole feed descended into a massive argument. Honestly, things were getting pretty tense out there. With only one message to use, people were saying things they might never have said otherwise. Some argued the daytime should be easy to survive, and that death count this high during the beginner period was already bad. Others said death was simply the whole point. The system announced from the start that letting Players die was the goal, and gradually someone raised the question of why. They had been dragged here in the first place. The topic twisted through endless loops while he fished. Notification popped up. Fishing successful. Small green fish +1. Fishing experience +1. A tiny fish flopped around inside the grass basket, and though it thrashed about, the level 1 basket kept any caught fish, shrimp, or crab alive for 24 hours, so it was locked in. The small green fish was a level 1 sea creature, edible or processed into bait. He reeled in, attached fresh bait, checked his map to confirm his island was safe, and cast again. This time the bait had barely been under a minute before the float plunged. Water shaking violently, a massive fish. He grabbed the rod, ignoring all advice about reeling it in slowly, and yanked the thing straight onto the island. Koi over a meter long, patterned in red, black, and white, flopped onto the ground, refusing the fish basket, thrashing wildly and gearing up to attack him instead. Panel labeled it a level 2 koi with 500 health and a nasty bite, and killing it granted 1 level 2 koi treasure chest, a special creature that dropped a treasure chest on death, and now one had surfaced in his sea. He stood with his wooden stick, leveling up his combat skills on the spot. Extra power flowed straight into the weapon in his hand, and he swung down at the fish's head, his 8 combat power plus the 1 weapon attack halved. It's 500 health in a single strike, and before the giant koi can even leap away, his second strike lands perfectly on target. With 2 heavy hits directly to the head, 500 health points vanish instantly. Just like a local fishmonger would do it, because to kill a fish, you strike the head. Killing the level 2 chilled koi grants him 5 hunting and fishing experience. He also snags a level 2 koi treasure chest. The fish leaves no body behind. Only a half-meter tall wooden chest remains on the ground. He drops his stick. He rubs his hands together, praying this lucky koi lives up to its reputation. Crouching down, he reaches forward, and the heavy lid of the treasure chest swings open. A brilliant flash of colorful light erupts as a book drops into his inventory. The screen says he opened the chest and obtained a body-strengthening technique. A genuine cultivation skill book. He stands there shocked by his luck. He stays crouched as the chest vanishes, barely believing his own luck. After carefully putting away his fishing rod and gear, he heads back toward the house. He walks back to the front yard, and only after stowing everything does he pull out the book. It measures about 20 centimeters long and 30 wide, consisting of just a few thin pages. The cover is clearly labeled as the Body Strengthening Technique, a self-enhancement guide. This manual requires dedicated cultivation to slowly build up his physical stats. The moment he reaches out to lift the cover, the book shatters into glowing particles. The system registers that he has learned the technique. A brand new skill category appears, and he clicks it to read the details. The description shows this is a continuous enhancement skill requiring intense training. He has to complete standard exercises to gain a self-enhancement boost. The base effect grants a tiny combat boost. Every single full completion increases his combat power by 0.01. That means doing this 100 times adds a full point. Talk about a massive grind. But he actually loves this method, because even with tiny gains, there is absolutely no upper limit. With limited resources on the island, his free hours are endless. Since he cannot dive into the dangerous sea for supplies, he usually just browses the chat channels. But now he finally has a productive way to burn through those boring, empty hours. With 30 minutes left before the weeds and trees can be harvested, he decides to start. He stands in the empty clearing beside his house and attempts the first standard movement. He copies the demonstrated forms and barely gets through the first 2. But on the third movement, his body locks up as a brutal thigh cramp hits him. With 108 complex movements ahead, he wonders if he can even finish today. After a quick rest, he takes a deep breath and forces his way through the third. The skill's progress bar glows, signaling he can finally move on to the fourth pose. All 108 steps must be done perfectly in sequence, which is insanely difficult. His only saving grace is that the system allows him to take short breaks. As long as he does not wait over an hour between steps, his progress will not reset. His pace is painfully slow, making him look like a lagging character in a game. Constantly adjusting his posture, it is nearly 2 in the afternoon, and he has only finished 6. His entire body feels sore, numb, and aching, the brutal reality of cultivation training. He grabs his heavy felling axe and limps toward the fully grown trees. He vigorously shakes his arms to clear the numbness before he begins to harvest. Before starting this technique, his total combat power was stuck at 3 points. His power originally came from leveling up his gathering stat. Back then, he only watched the numbers shift in his info panel and felt his strength grow through running, jumping, punching, and kicking, both. Methods improved him, but the feel of this cultivation technique was far stronger. After a stretch of chopping, he got 43 wood and 11 branches from the 4 small trees. The weeds across the 5 plots were sparse this round, with only 46 pulled in under 5 minutes, giving exactly 100 experience. With gathering done, he checked his inventory and found 2 bait left, so he used the small blue fish in his creel to craft 1 more for 3. The fishing rod had 5 durability, and he decided to spend these 3 bait now, since carrying different types of bait was eating too much space. Before fishing, he did not forget to complete the 7th training movement, then sat down with the rod and started to fish, needing to stay calm, which left him browsing the channel once again. He locked onto the points, scrolling up. The moment he opened it, someone shrugged off a death, saying that since the two had gone for a duel, dying on the stage was their own fault. Another corrected it, that the duel standard was combat, but the man had committed murder, and that maybe neither side had fully understood the rules. A third scoffed that each person spent 10 ocean crystal stones to enter a fight and surely knew the rules, and that people only stop repeating themselves in chat because words cost money. Every 5 extra words a crystal, even under 5 still counting as 1. The thread tallied the spenders who had burned 4 crystals and who had burned 1, and then asked, half disgusted, why anyone would duel at all, whether they were tired of living, since Trade City was supposed to be for selling things, and here someone was selling his life. The topic rolled on. Few repeating player numbers, suggesting those particular players had a fair store of crystal stones to spend. His attention had caught on the duel and the death on the stage. Among the buildings of Trade City, there really was a training ground, not a single place, but a massive structure holding many training areas and stages. As he fished and watched, someone soon reported that those 2 had dueled for nothing more than 1, looking at the other the wrong way on the street. No friends, no free chat, and yet a man could still lose his life over a dirty look. Honestly, that's wild when you think about it. Everyone sat on their own island, handling their own development, going to the trade market when they needed to buy, never able to so much as touch another player, and from everything he currently knew, the one place a person could actually interact with another was the training ground. The map on his pass showed its offerings included cooperative training as well as stage duels, but whether the training ground or the stage, a player had to pay ocean crystal stones to open a temporary time-limited usage area. In a little over half an hour, he pulled 3 different things out of the sea, one after another, the panel calling each one a successful catch and crediting a point of fishing experience. Along with the goods, the first was a small soil gift pack, and when he opened it, the thing handed him exactly 3 pieces of soil, which made the name honest if nothing else. The second was a level 1 supply crate, identical to the crates that spawned on the island on their own, packed with 6 soil, 12 stone, 8 wood, 8 weeds, a loaf of bread, and a bottle of water. The third was the best of the lot, a food recipe. When he read it, the panel showed a dish called fish with scallion oil, a level 1 plate built from 1 level 1 fish, 1 cooking oil, and 1 scallion, granting recovery speed plus 10% for 10 minutes. The catch was that he had never seen cooking oil or scallions anywhere. Not on his island and not in the trade market stalls. A recipe with no way to make the ingredients was just a slip of paper for now. Still, he learned it anyway and set the whole idea aside. He put the fishing rod away and went back to the open ground beside the house, because his real plan for the day was to get through all 108 movements of the body strengthening technique at least once. It was brutal. Just adjusting his posture for a single movement ate so much of his stamina that after 5 or 6 he had to stop and rest, legs shaking under him. He pulled out a jam-filled bread and chewed at it slowly. The bread was soft enough, but his whole body was so tired that even his jaw wanted to quit. Arms and legs already done. He took 16 berries, worked them into 4 portions of jam, added 4 loaves of bread, and made 4 more jam-filled breads at the food table, stowing 3 and keeping 1 in hand with a bottle of water as he leaned against the wall and looked out at the far line of the horizon. When that bread was gone and the bottle was empty and dissolved out of existence. He stood back up past 3:20 in the afternoon, so the 9 reinforced plots were due for another round of gathering. He weeded and felled the small trees, then kept working through the cultivation movements, one at a time in between. After 5 in the evening, a fresh wave of growth came up to gather, until 6 on the dot, when the system announced that the island resources had refreshed. A level 2 supply crate spawned right under his foot the instant the refresh hit. He was mid-movement, balanced on one leg with the other, dragged almost to the standard angle, when a box simply appeared beneath him. Nearly knocked him over. Talk about perfect timing. He hopped to balance, swore at nothing in particular under his breath, and squatted to crack the thing open. It gave him 9 ocean crystal stones, a felling axe, 3 iron ore, 29 soil, 58 stone, 41 wood, 39 weeds, 5 bread, and 2 water, all pouring straight into his inventory. 3 crates had spawned with this refresh, 1 level 1 and 2 level 2. The level 1 was the usual basic spread with the quantities nudged around and nothing new in it, but the second level 2, the one out at the edge, made his eyes light up because it carried 10 ocean crystal stones, 5 cabbage seeds, and a level 1 pickaxe crafting recipe sitting on top of its soil and stone and wood, crystal stones, seeds, and a recipe in one box. His luck, it seemed, was holding. He checked his panel to review his current situation. Rather than a wall of statistics, he was Island Master number 9911, combat power 8 with hunting at level 0, fishing at level 0, gathering at level 3 and most of the way to its next jump, and planting still at flat 0. His island ran 90 square meters, 9 of them reinforced to level 1. With a level 1 wooden shack on it, his 12 inventory slots held the teleport past 38 crystal stones, the cabbage seeds, iron ore, soil, stone, a heap of wood, an even larger heap of weeds, sawdust, branches, and his trusty felling axe. Yet he still wore only his novice vest, matching shorts, and level 1 straw sandals. He stowed his haul, dropped some bread and water into the storage chest, and immediately learned the level 1 pickaxe recipe. It required a fair bit of iron ore, so he dug out the 5 iron chunks he saved earlier. With his slots now tidy, he quickly cleared the weeds and felled the trees that had grown back in the plots, banking another 105 gathering experience, 35 wood, 8 branches, and 62 weeds before hurrying back to push through his next cultivation. That bought him an hour of rest, so he opened the island interface and tapped area expansion, hoping to time it just right to catch an extra wave of refresh. He had been trying to clear every plot the moment its plants matured, because during a scheduled refresh, a plot would turn its contents into gatherable goods, whether the land was empty or just sprouting. Talk about a total waste of space. Players in the chat had claimed that an ore pile left on a plot without a tool to mine it would still sit there unchanged after the refresh, and someone had apparently proved it by scratching a mark on a pile and finding that same mark there. After the next window, he set the expansion patches on his map 10 times in a row, pushing the island out to 100 square meters the moment the area hit. That size light flickered across the water all around the edge, and a notification announced his island had reached 100 square meters, opening new chapter. It promised his efforts would be rewarded, and that a new reward pack had been issued. The pack dropped into the last open slot of his inventory. Now watch this. His island began changing under him. Seawater washed over the foundation stones at the rim, and the blocky ring of square, stacked stones that used to look like a floating box suddenly sank and spread out at the edges, rising high in the center and low around the perimeter. The outer stones now lay flush with the water, and gentle ripples occasionally crawled up onto the shore. With the wind pausing before sliding back, it was the same size but finally looked like a genuine island instead of a hollow box floating on the sea. The next morning, the system panel revealed exactly what this upgrade got him, naming the place an extremely barren micro-island of 100 square meters with 64 of island land and 36 of barren beach. He stared blankly at the 9 plots that had not refreshed at all, realizing he had completely overthought the timing earlier. Still, it was no big loss since he had to harvest everything sooner or later anyway, and his island description had at least crept up a notch in the bargain. Better yet, a brand new stage opened up now that a beach had finally appeared, and the system was blunt. Only an island with a beach truly counts as an island. This beach came labeled as barren, meaning marine life Washed in by the tide, had absolutely zero interest in a weedless stretch of sand. Reinforcing it required a different recipe from standard island reinforcement. 1 cubic meter needed 2 turf, 5 pebbles, and 5 sawdust. Turf and pebbles had to be made manually, 50 weeds processed down into a single unit of turf, and 5 stone pressed into 1 unit of pebbles, both quick crafting tasks at the processing table. Curious about how much 1 unit actually yielded, he processed both. With his bag already completely full, the 2 semi-finished piles sat right on the ground. Beside him, a pile of pebbles was about the size of a single keystone, and a turf squeezed out of 50 weed came to maybe half a square meter. It was tougher than the straw mat on his bed, even though, being a semi-finished material rather than a household item with 0 buffs. But watch, the math was steep. 2 turf needing 100 weed and 5 pebbles needing 25 stone, but he had the materials, so he picked a spot and ran the beach reinforcement, the panel named. The result, a level 1 reinforced beach, a barren stretch with only a little turf and gravel, and noted that perhaps a level 1 marine creature might be willing to crawl up for a look now. He walked over to that 1 CT patch, half turf and half gravel, the look of it already a real improvement on the bare sand, and as if on cue, a small shrimp washed up on a wave, stopped on the turf and burrowed in with a few flicks of its tail. He could see it shifting round under the turf, treating the spot as a temporary nest. The panel read it as a level 1 small shrimp, health 50, a marine creature with a stage duration of just under 4 hours, ticking down. Creatures that washed up on the beach like this would not attack the island, but each one carried a clock, and if he left it too long, it would simply return to the sea when the time ran out. To him, this 3-centimeter small shrimp was 1 unit of bait plus 1 point of hunting experience, and when no actual attackers were coming, small shrimp and small fish and small crab were the cleanest way to stack hunting. He crouched, quick with his hands, pinched the small shrimp by the head, and crushed it between his fingers. Since 50 health was only health and meant nothing for defense, the panel loved the kill and the experience, and he carried the ruined small shrimp to the processing table, where the bait it made still looked like a small shrimp. He left the bait sitting on the table without taking it out, since the single processing slot had nothing else to do, and turned his attention back to reinforcing real soil he could gather on. He had plenty of material and no plan to expand further, so he reinforced 8 plots straight, bringing the reinforced ground to 17 plots laid out in 3 rows of 6, 6, and 5, a little past 10 past 6 in the evening. With nothing sprouted yet, he stood off to the side and went back to stretching and working through the technique. A few movements, a few minutes of rest, then a few more. His stamina drained fast and his hunger came on faster, and by not quite 10 o'clock he was uncomfortably empty and ate 2 more jam-filled breads. Starting around the 90th of the 108 movements, his whole body was one long ache, and he gritted through the last of them just before midnight, the panel crediting 1 full practice of the body strengthening technique, combat power plus 0.01, a hundredth of a point. His personal information only displayed whole numbers, so it still read combat power 8, but get this, it would not stay 8 for long. In between movements, he had harvested every plot as it came due. Once around 7:50 and again around 9:40, and with 17 plots the materials and experience ran far higher than before. With 5 minutes left to midnight, he finally sat down on the dirt to rest, having pulled 216 wood, 59 branches, and 311 weed across 3 harvests for 586 gathering experience in a day. And a gathering has definitely been the easiest skill for him to grind out, and the progress bar shows it, sitting completely full at level 3. He taps level up. Gathering rises to level 4, combat power plus 1, the bar resets low into its brand new ceiling. Now his combat power climbs to 9, almost double what he started with. Looking up at the rising moon, it really hits him how incredibly fast this day and a half flew by. Then trouble. A messy situation strikes. He was quietly admiring his progress while waiting for the midnight refresh, when his stomach suddenly reminds him that overeating has some serious consequences. There is absolutely no toilet on this 100 square meters of barren rock. After looking around, conflicted at all that wide open space, he crafts 4 fences and sets them up north of the house as a makeshift latrine, using weed for the obvious cleanup. He deals with business, then heads back around to the front. Midnight finally hits and all resources refresh. When he checks the Map he feels a little sheepish about how fast he has grown. 5 supply. Crates spawn this time, 2 level 1 and 3 level 2, normal enough for an island transitioning into a whole new chapter. The 17 plots hold 5 small trees, 6 patches of weeds, and 6 ore piles, which is normal. The reinforced beach shows 1 small crab marker and 2 small shrimp markers, normal stuff, right? But inside the fenced patch behind his house, the map flags 1 unit of level 2 fertilizer. It already turned itself into a loose pile of organic manure by the time he walks over to inspect it. The panel tells him that 1 unit of this fertilizer mixed with 1 soil and 5 sawdust will produce level 2 soil, so now he knows where level 2 soil comes from. Mystery solved. The path to that discovery required serious strength of character, and he decides this. Unexpected harvest counts, even if he would rather not think about how he earned it. He ignores the pile of manure for the moment and walks over to the beach. First, catching 1 crab and 2 shrimp for 3 hunting experience points before returning to the house. Crafting a level 1 pickaxe requires 10 wood and 5 iron. Or easy enough since he saved some iron, so he sets it crafting on its 3-minute timer and turns to pull weeds. The 6 plots give a generous 71 stalks this time. The 5 small trees yield 49 wood and 12 branches. When chopped down and by the time he clears the lot, the pickaxe is ready. For action, his level 1 felling and mining tools both carry 100. Durability, every normal use costs somewhere between 1 and 3 points, which is random but tied to his care. When he chops a tree, he makes sure the axe lands in the exact same notch every swing, keeping durability loss to just 1 point per stroke. The ore piles work the same way, big chunks of stone stuck together with joints that are clearly visible, and prying at those joints with his pickaxe only costs 1 durability point per pry. He has never tried slamming the pickaxe straight into a solid block of stone, but he guesses that would be a painful experience for both him and the tool, so he works the piles for a bit, and by 12:15 all 17 plots are cleared once more, yielding 68 stone and 6 more iron ore, gathering across. All of them banks him 230 experience. With resources processed, he finally starts opening those 5 supply crates one by one, and the haul is absolutely massive. He finally feels lucky again. Across all 5 chests, he pulls 18 ocean crystals. Stones, 2 axes, 4 flint, 5 ore, 104 soil, stone and wood, and 195 weeds, 3 jam breads, 5 loaves of bread plus 6 bottles of water and 8 berries. Just standard loot he has seen before, but the real prizes are 2 recipes. The first is a cooking blueprint for garlic shrimp, requiring 1 shrimp, garlic, and seasoning to cook a level 1 dish that boosts recovery speed by 10% and increases dexterity by 1 for 10 minutes. Garlic shrimp is solid, but the dexterity boost instantly catches his eye. His cultivation training has been so brutal that he even started blaming his own dexterity for the pain, since those intense movements stretch his tendons and muscles to the point of total numbness. This dexterity food might be exactly what he needs. Survival is key. The second recipe is a level 2 tool, a planting shovel requiring 8 iron ore and 1 wood. It has 10 durability for planting seeds. He has actually been quietly dreading manual farming. This tool changes everything. He feels like things are looking up. He crafts it on a quick 3-minute timer. While that cooks, he grinds 102 branches into sawdust to free up inventory space, then pulls out the finished shovel, a half-meter wooden tool with an iron tip, and crafts a storage box. He carries his tools over to scoop up the manure into the flower pot. After adding soil, his system panel updates, calling it a flower pot filled with level 2 soil, ready to grow level 1 and 2 crops. He takes out a cabbage seed and reads the quick planting tutorial on the hot before using the shovel to dig a small hole, dropping the seed right inside and covering it. Success. The panel logs a planted level 1 cabbage, rewards him some experience, and lists a maturity time of 3 hours. Status: water deprived. It needs a quick drink, and seawater won't work, only fresh water. He sets down the shovel with 9 durability left, then opens a fresh bottle to pour slowly into the soil until the dry status finally clears. The panel credits an effective watering, granting him planting experience and cutting 30 minutes off the growth time. It is an incredibly fair trade, since his hard work actually pays back and the water isn't wasted. He places the pot under the window near the door and sets the new storage box beside it. Not exactly the safest spot, but the Tiny house has no room left, 4 square meters, with his bed taking up half. And the massive storage box taking another full square meter, leaving him with zero desire to block his own doorway. Upgrading the base is the only real option. He checks the map before sleeping, confirming that no dangerous sea creatures are close, and prepares for an hour and a half of rest when he suddenly notices the massive pile of over 100 portions of soil in his inventory. The rule is simple: if he has soil, he must use it, not just for gathering but to protect his entire island. Earlier, he read a chilling chat post from an unfortunate player whose home was ambushed in a strange way by a long-range sea creature targeting the foundation directly under the house, ripping vital stones from beneath. It's sending his carefully crafted wooden house tumbling straight down into the cold. See, other survivors warned that these monsters possess deadly long-range skills, launching attacks, which struck completely at random on any unreinforced patch. The terrifying idea of suddenly plunging into the freezing ocean along with his entire cabin while sleeping made him extremely serious about his safety. He quickly reinforced 11 foundation stones, protecting the 4 square meters under the cabin and 7 more under his processing table area. Losing his shelter would be devastating, and losing his table was unthinkable. Even after that, one unreinforced spot still remained in the processing area for later. With his base secured, he told himself to finally sleep. Went back inside and lay down, but peace never lasts long here. Before his expected window of half past 1:30 to 2 in the morning, a notification jolted him upright. Sea beasts were attacking his island. He grabbed his wooden weapon, dashed outside, and immediately spotted a section of his beach foundation flashing brightly on the northeast corner of the map on the panel floating before him. Under the moonlight, he walked over and found the culprits, 3 seaworms destroying his beach, each about a couple of centimeters thick and 5 long, looking like giant spined maggots. The system identified them as level 1 seaworms with 200 health points. Their bristles carried paralyzing toxin, a common sea beast that excelled at chewing up stone. Honestly, who knew worms had a taste for rock? With one quick swing of his wooden stick, the first seaworm died instantly, dropping its skin straight into his inventory. These level 1 pests were luckily only targeting his foundation and ignored him completely. Of course, he never gave them the chance. 2 quick swings easily finished off the other 2 pests, each giving him 1 experience point and another skin. The screen described this item as a level 1 material for crafting and processing. Since he had no recipes, he just tossed the skins aside. The beach foundation was damaged, but thankfully not destroyed. With his sleep completely ruined, he went back inside and opened the island interface to start reinforcing. He processed 900 weed into 18 turf tiles, 225 stone into pebbles, and wood into fresh sawdust. He connected the damaged patch to his secure beach area and hardened 9 brand new sections. He checked his personal profile afterwards and found very little difference. His combat power was 9, and his physical reinforcement skill remained active. Hunting, fishing, and farming were all still barely crawling along, while gathering led the pack at level 4. His island measured 100 square meters total, 64 being land with 28 reinforced, and 36 beach with 10 reinforced. Underneath his level 1 cabin, his inventory slots currently held the survival pass: 56 crystals, some cabbage seeds, 1 iron ore, 2 soil, 50 stone, 946 wood, 55 weed, 1 sawdust, and 2 felling axes with his wooden stick equipped right next to his novice gear. He stored the stick and checked the clock. Out of 17 resource plots, the very earliest crop still needed over 40 minutes to fully mature, so he went back inside and lay down. A quick half-hour nap was all he got, because the next harvest was ready in 10 minutes, and sleeping in would waste the opportunity. He checked his map, saw nothing out of the ordinary, and flipped to the chat channel to pass the time. Many players were on their 2nd or 3rd posts by now. 1 ocean crystal could buy 5 character letters, which was absolute pocket change for the lucky survivors. It was highly entertaining watching them spend valuable currency just to roast or praise each other. Some stranger over something funny. 1 single-digit island master had posted that someone was, in his verified opinion, an absolute idiot, and he instantly recognized the handle number 7, whom he had seen posting 5-character lines the day before. He scrolled up for context and found the joke. Someone bragged about getting bored in the middle of the night and going for a swim, catching a few fish, beating them to death on shore with a wooden stick, and having a piece of equipment called a water-repelling shroud drop. Someone else had followed. Suit straight into the water, and before he could even swim back out, had a leg gnawed off by a sea creature, then crawled ashore demanding to know why the first man had set him up. A third person pointed out that absolutely nobody could actually tell whether anyone was foolish enough to die for loot or really got chewed up by fish, since nobody could see what anyone else looked like, except they could see them. He thought all anyone had to do was go to the trade city. Nobody had mentioned that yet, and he was not about to be the one to say it. He watched a while longer without finding any new topics, then went out when the weed matured, pulling each stalk and felling the small trees, clearing away for 171. Gathering experience, 88 weed, 92 wood, and 21 branches. His wood had piled up past the 1,000 mark, and since one slot capped at 999, it had split into one full slot and another holding 39. That done, he went inside to lay down again. It was 1:45 in the morning, and he could steal about 2 hours of sleep if he timed it right before the 6 refresh, but he could never fully let go of it, so in under 2 hours he was up to pull weed and chop trees, then back down, then up again. To gather on schedule, his sleep could only come in pieces, and he had no idea when he would ever sleep through the night. Again, wide awake by 5:30, he walked the reinforced beach first and picked up 5 small shrimp, 3 small crabs, and 3 small green fish for 1,100 hunting experience and 11 portions of bait material. Then he went back to pull weeds and chop down trees, and counting that 3 o'clock harvest, he banked 480 experience, 189 weed, 154 wood, and 65 branches. Resting with 11 minutes left before 6, he caught sight of the fully grown cabbage in the flower pot outside the window and realized he had completely forgotten about it because he had been so wrapped up in gathering and beach loot through the night that the vegetable he had planted with his own hands had slipped his mind entirely. According to the panel, the vegetable was matured and ready, a very large cabbage easily weighing 7 or 8 caddies. He firmly gripped it by the root and pulled it up, the harvested cabbage going straight into his inventory alongside another point of gathering experience. Looking down at the flower pot, he saw its description had completely changed. Where it once read it could plant level 1-2. Level 2 plants, it now read level 1 only, with the remaining uses marked as 9 of 10, probably, he thought, because the first thing he planted was level 1. The pot's count locked to a level 1 ratio, though he would not know for sure how a level 2 looked until he had level 2 soil and a level 2 seed to test it with. At 6 on the dot, the morning refresh hit, and there was so much of it that even braced for it, he was dazzled by the dozens of markers on the map, the 17 plots. He was used to the quiet, but 10 reinforced beach patches now flashed with over 30 markers for small shrimp, fish, and crabs all at once, and despite knowing they were just cheap bait and experience, he felt a sudden rush of excitement. On top of that, 5 supply crates had spawned on the island, 1 level 1 out in the open, and 4 level 2 scattered near his house and the beach. They would sit until the next refresh, making his most urgent tasks logging, mining, and weeding before the resources timed out. By 6:15, he successfully hoarded 78 weed and 41 wood, 9 branches, 68 stone, 8 iron ore, and 236 gathering experience. With his land completely cleared, he headed to the shore to gather seafood. The level 1 fish, shrimp, and crab were all tiny and harmless, no weapon needed since he could pinch away their 50 health with his bare fingers, 28 in all, giving 1 hunting experience each, 28 total. Next came the crates, and he got right to work. He cleared the beach first, as those resources could refresh anytime, and opened the level 2 crate waiting there. Besides the usual basics, it held 1 special item, a level 2 fishing rod crafting blueprint. Not bad, he thought. Pocketing the blueprint, he glanced out at the deep water before standing up and walking back to the island center to unpack the rest, 3 level 2 crates. And 1 level 1 remained. He popped the level 1 first, then the 3 level 2 boxes right after, including the beach crate. His entire morning haul came to 89 soil, 289 wood, 232 weed, 6 jam-filled breads, and 5 loaves, 11 water, and 19 berries. That was all basic stuff, alongside 26 ocean crystals, 13 iron ore, 2 flint, 2 pickaxes, 1 felling axe, and 3 new recipes. The level 2 fishing rod from earlier, a level 1 breeding pen, and a level 1 bonfire. The fishing rod required 10 bamboo poles, 3 fine lines, and 1 Iron wire, all level 2 materials for a rod with 30 durability to catch level 1. To level 3 ocean resources, the breeding pen required 100 each of wood. Stone and weed, 50 sawdust, and 10 soil for a 2x2 pen with 100 durability. To raise level 1 animals, meanwhile, the bonfire required 10 wood and 1 flint, and would burn for 3 hours, providing light and warmth. He learned all 3 recipes, checking materials at his processing table, but realized he either lacked the items or had no reason to craft them just yet, so he went to stash some items in storage. But when he opened the container inside his house, a forgotten reward pack caught his eye, and he nearly smacked himself on the head. Talk about a total facepalm moment. He had been so busy tidying the night before that he shoved the 100 square meter advancement pack inside and completely forgot about it. This was his biggest reward, but that bad sleep was totally rotting his brain. Sitting by the bed, he pinched the ribbon and pulled it open. The island 100 square meter advancement pack gifted him 50 ocean crystal stones, 10 level 1 bait, 10 level 1 fertilizer, and 10 level 1 flower pots, along with a level 1 seed gift pack, absolutely everything a player would desperately want. Right now, unwrapping the seeds, he found 5 different types, 2 of each variety. Evenly split scallion, garlic, ginger, soybean, and peanut, scallion, ginger. And garlic served as seasonings, while soybeans and peanuts could be pressed into cooking oil, which meant he was suddenly much closer to that coveted fish with scallion oil recipe than before. He headed outside to plant them, packing 1 fertilizer and 1 soil into a flower pot that looked completely identical to a level 2 pot from the outside. The system panel identifies a flower pot filled with level 1 soil. Only level 1 crops, 2 uses left. The system differences are now completely clear. Level 2 pot grows basic crops 10 times. The basic conversion ratio is calculated at 5:1. This means level 2 crops only get planted twice. He lines up his pots, pours in soil, and starts planting. Seed by seed he works. Unfortunately, his shovel breaks midway through the task. He quickly crafts a fresh planting shovel and finishes working on the last pot. Suddenly, every single pot flashes a water shortage icon. 10 pots mean 10 bottles. That is a massive reality check. The absolute scarcity of water hits him hard. Seawater is useless without a purifier. Relying on random crate drops is a gamble. He needs 4 or 5 bottles daily just to survive, let alone irrigate crops. This meager supply is nowhere near enough, but he lacks a water purifier recipe. For now, he files this massive problem under items to search Trade City for. Breeding introduces its own massive headache. Building a pen is easy, finding animals is not. He cannot exactly fish up chickens or ducks. Livestock must come from other sources. Those will have to come from crates or the market. He walks to the beach. Washing hands in seawater is sticky and uncomfortable, but clean water is far too precious. Eating a quick jam-filled bread, he gulps down water and contemplates this whole breeding plan. Is it even worth the effort? Cubs require constant food and fresh water to raise. By 6:30 p.m., he is fed and watered. The sun feels pleasantly warm. That mild 27 degrees makes him feel incredibly lazy, so he picks a relaxing task. Time for some fishing, with 39 pieces of bait cluttering his inventory space. He grabs coarse thread from storage, crafts a basic rod, and heads out. Carrying his fish basket, he sits cross-legged on a cornerstone facing the ocean. He baits the hook and casts the line. This level 1 rod is extremely fragile. Having only 1 durability point left, this cast will definitely be its final run, since he has only managed to find 1 single piece of coarse thread so far. He knows he might need to build another storage box just for the bait. He decides to burn through the bait types he has the least of first. First cast 1 small crab, a solid start, and it saves him some bait. That fragile rod breaks instantly. He pulls out a fresh one, baits, and casts. The second cast yields a supply crate. The third catches something entirely brand new. Some level 1 seaweed. The system panel details it as a raw material for fertilizer. Definitely another useful keeper. His luck is running incredibly high on this beautiful day. Getting a bite almost every 5 minutes, he keeps casting until his rod is nearly broken. With only 2 durability left, he reels in a rare level 2 material pack. Opening it rewards him with 3 iron ores and 3 precious coarse threads. Iron is easy to farm, but coarse thread only comes from these special crates. This is exactly what he needed. He crafts more rods and loads his inventory. Keeping 3 spares handy, he goes right back to fishing. Suddenly, his float plunges. The system logs a mysterious level 2 fish fry, along with a strange water sphere. This glowing sphere goes straight into his bag. He stares at it in absolute confusion. Talk about a mystery. The panel simply lists it as an unidentified item. He will need to get it appraised at the Trade Market Appraisal Office. A mystery item could make him rich or be completely useless. He heads off. He would buy it if he had enough crystal stones, or set up a stall to trade it away. If the price was too steep, fishing all morning, he cast his line for hours in the morning. He had 39 bait. Every little fish, shrimp, and crab he caught was useful. More bait, so when his fishing rods finally ran out of durability, he still had 19 pieces left. 41 casts total had netted him just 2 level 2 items. And 49 fishing experience. He stood, dropping the bait into a newly crafted third storage cabinet, and immediately set off to clear weeds and small trees from his land. He had paused around 750 for an earlier gathering round, bringing his total experience to 362, topping his gathering off at level 4 again. His other levels were still crawling, but gathering was ready for an upgrade, so he tapped the option. Gathering hit level 5, boosting his combat power by 1, putting him at 10. Combat power, that was double what he had started with when he first arrived here at 11 in the morning the day before yesterday, not even 2 full days gone. The feeling was genuinely excellent. With harvesting finished, he tidied up his 3 storage cabinets, grabbed every single supply he could carry, and activated the teleport to the trading city. 10 ocean crystal stones were deducted. His panel updated to combat power 10 and gathering level 5, with his other stats remaining unchanged. His island was still 100 square meters, with 64 of land and 36 of beach, partly reinforced. The level 1 wooden cabin still stood. His inventory slots were mess of passes, crystal stones, cabbage seeds, iron ore, soil, and stone, 2 full slots of wood, weeds, branches, and that level 2 unknown fish fry. Since he had no clue what a potential buyer might want, he brought a little of everything. The trading city was packed shoulder to shoulder the moment he arrived, but its strict rules guaranteed absolute safety, 0 physical contact. The system shoved any 2 players apart instantly. Honestly, a total lifesaver for him. Arriving in the central plaza, he slipped right out of the crowd toward the main gates of the trade market and headed straight inside to the appraisal area. Players were constantly passing through, some looking thrilled while others seemed completely furious. Because appraisal was nothing but spending precious crystal stones to gamble on random results. Some won big while others lost, and he had no idea which way his luck would turn. The appraisal area opened up into a massive corridor that seemed to have no end. Side corridors branched off both walls, each lined with 100 appraisal rooms. Above the entrance of each corridor hung the live count. Corridor number 1 read 6 out of 100, meaning 6 active rooms, while corridor number 2 remained at 0, with a wall marking stating that corridor number 2 would only unlock once corridor number 1 passed 50 out of 100. It was the same system all the way down. Seeing nothing else, he turned back, entered corridor number 1, and stopped right in front of room number 3. Since rooms 1 and 2 were already occupied, the players inside had likely picked room numbers they considered lucky. A sudden prompt at the door detected the unidentified item in his inventory, revealing an appraisal fee of 100 crystal stones to enter. The door itself acted as the payment terminal. He confirmed, dropping his crystal count from 112 to 12. Before he stepped through the opening door, the appraisal room inside looked pretty shabby. Honestly, far worse than his own island. Not that he wanted to complain, but it was true. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving him alone in a private zone. This 20 square meter barren island had a pile of rubble right in the middle. A cluster of white light rested on it, wrapping up a level 2 creature. Before he could even move, the white light flashed and revealed the creature. The system identified it as a level 2C patrolling octopus juvenile. A guardian-type, free-range carnivore that would grow upon reaching 1,000 health, with the adult version able to patrol the beach. This was a massive win for him, because once this little creature grew up, it could help guard his entire island. Right now, though, the juvenile was ridiculously tiny, barely the size of a red bean including its 8 stubby pink tentacles. He held out his hand and watched the tiny creature crawl right across his fingers, staring at it before tapping to leave the room as a 3-minute countdown popped up. since room 3 was close. He was back at the appraisal entrance in just a few steps. A male player around his height but much broader jogged over and blocked his path, asking if the little creature in his hand was for sale. Not for sale, he replied, and kept on walking. This was the future defender of his island, after all. And raising it well would make his life so much easier, because while beachcombing for small fish, shrimp, and crabs was fun for now, everything had its limits. Doing that all day, every single day, would quickly burn him out. The man kept pace beside him, guessing it was a breeding pet, and offering 500 ocean crystal stones, warning him how hard it would be to feed once he took it home. The guy had waited half the morning, and he was only the second person to emerge. Carrying a pet, small as it was, its size did not matter to them. Not for sale, he repeated. Honestly, he was not much of a bargainer, being quite socially anxious. Actually, social aversion was probably a much better description, and being followed by a man staring at the tiny pink octopus with glowing eyes was getting highly annoying, no matter how polite his tone was. Then a strikingly tall woman slid in from the side, spreading her arms out in a playful hugging gesture. She taunted the broad man, calling him number 7, and asked why he was chasing a delicate guy instead of waiting for his own pet, playfully leaning close, even though players could not actually touch. Number 7's face darkened instantly. This persistent woman had already tried twice to drag him to a romantic hotel, and he wanted absolutely nothing to do with her, not even a fake hug across an air wall. He snapped at her to stop being annoying, watching the young man slip away with bulging eyes. This very same woman had already ruined his previous attempt to buy a pet. 2, she fired back that he clearly understood how annoying being chased felt, since he had been pestering some young girl and was now doing the same to this handsome guy, which made him way worse than her. At least she only stared at him. She tucked a stray hair behind her ear and grinned triumphantly, clearly doing this on purpose without caring. Everyone wanted to buy a pet, including her, but asking once was enough. Pestering someone who already said no was just bad manners. Besides, she was just waiting for the shop to refresh, happily amusing herself by messing with him. She loved popping up to needle number 7 whenever he targeted others, since watching a handsome face change colors made the dull waiting time interesting. Number 7 protested that he was only trying to buy, not steal, never once admitting that glaring someone down to force a sale was totally wrong. His logic was that people might just sell to get some peace and quiet. The woman scoffed, asking if holding a few crystal stones made him special when she had plenty. 2, offering to buy him for 5 or 8,000, so why was he mad? She reached toward his cheek with a smug grin, unable to touch him but close enough to make his skin crawl, especially since she had quickly gone from inviting him out to openly trying to purchase him. He had only caught a fragment of their dispute before walking into the market stalls, so he never saw how it ended between them. For this market trip, he mainly wanted breedable animals, since with a breeding pen he could raise them for both food and fertilizer, and now that he had accepted where manure came from, the anticipation of it could be quietly turned into valuable planting experience. There were 4 main categories of levels, each boosting combat power upon leveling up, but the experience required doubled every level, so he had to clear the early levels as fast as he could. Seeds for planting, fertilizer for breeding, and materials for a fishing rod. Looking at his inventory slots, he felt broke. The players waiting to buy pets clearly had piles of crystal stones and special items to boost their beasts. Talk about a massive gap. He only had this one tiny octopus, and since he had not returned islandside yet, it was not in a rearing state, only crawling around on his hand for amusement. He had wandered the stall area for 5 minutes, checking several displays with cubs, when he heard someone hawking chicks as a male and female pair. They are breedable, do not miss out. Miss this, and you will never buy them. Breedable pair of chicks. He followed the calling voice to a thin, petite girl, about 1.5 meters tall, standing at over 1.80 meters. He made her look even smaller when he stopped at her stall. 250 crystal stones each, the price. Reed, he could not afford that steep price, though these 2 little chicks were genuinely different from those seen earlier, clearly carrying that rare, breedable tag. He had no idea if breeding meant a single time or many times. The status panel named them a level 1 mother hen and a level 1 rooster chick. Both breedable and both requiring a proper breeding pen. The hen would gain the ability to lay eggs once fully grown, and raised alongside a breedable rooster, having a chance to produce hatchable eggs while the rooster boosted breeding. Effectiveness when raised together, she set them at 250 crystal stones each. The total was correct, but where he came from, that specific number translates to idiot back home, a pretty unfriendly meaning, so he left it there. She looked up, saw the price scared him, and hurried to explain that the chicks absolutely had to be raised in a breeding pen, since she lacked one and could not find the recipe to craft one. She was selling them, he told her. He had no crystal stones, only basic materials, yet he remained interested in them because so few other animals carried that breedable tag, meaning a full flock if raised correctly. Surely, a hen laying and hatching eggs would not stop at a single brood. She brightened and offered to trade for. Instead, she lowered her voice, admitting she had actually swiped the pair from the sales area. At the current market rate, 20 crystal stones bought roughly 1,000 wood, so she wanted to trade them for that much. Her face flushed little pink as she spoke, since she originally priced them at 20 crystal stones, but absolutely nobody had even glanced at them. She only bought those chicks hoping to try breeding, rushing the purchase without looking closely. Only afterward did she realize she lacked a pen. Dejected, she set up a stall and sat there for half an hour as onlookers passed her by. Now that someone had finally stopped to confirm they were actually raisable, she grew desperate to make the deal and return to her island to fish. Weeding was manageable, but chopping wood and mining drained her energy way too fast, and only fishing kept her stocked with tradable goods. Go ahead and chain the price then, he told her. He remembered the wood to crystal exchanges he had noticed at nearby stalls, running anywhere from 48 to 52 wood per crystal. Honestly, whether she lied about her original purchase price didn't matter to him. The exchange rate made buying the pair for 20 feel absolutely worth it. She quickly updated the price, telling him to raise them well, since a system warning she saw noted that neglected livestock could fall sick. With the trade finished, she waved and dashed off. So they can fall ill, he noted, looking at the two fluffy chicks in his inventory, though their descriptions mentioned nothing of the sort. Still, since farming required constant water, it made sense that livestock would have special needs. He still had 421 wood left, so he kept browsing the stalls. At one merchant spot, he spotted a litter of 4 level 1 white rabbit cubs listed for 800 wood, weed, or stone, 4 animals for simple resources, and at that low price. No wonder that girl thought he overpaid, he realized, sighing at her cheerful exit. Honestly, who could blame her? But he just wanted them. So he handed over 800 weed, snapping up those little rabbits to pack his inventory again. It wasn't even 11 in the morning, and his crops back home weren't fully grown. Plus, if his island faced any danger, the system would immediately send an alert. He could just teleport back instantly. With that in mind, he continued browsing and found a merchant selling 10 units of coarse thread for 20 resources each. Unwilling to waste precious stone needed for island expansion and beach reinforcement, he asked the merchant to accept a mix of 17 weed and 3 wood instead. This way, all 10 threads would fit into the single inventory slot he was freeing up, dodging those annoying storage fees that pile up from piecemeal buys. The lanky shop owner complied without hesitation, quickly modifying the trade settings. The transaction finished smoothly. Since neither of them was particularly talkative, he just ducked his head to restock, pulling out some flint that was completely useless to him. So he kept moving. Right before heading back, he spotted a deal on soil and spent 385 wood on 55 bags of it. It was a rare find, as soil only dropped from crates and fishing packs. By now, his inventory was packed with 12 crystal stones, some seeds, iron ore, thread, a huge pile of soil, stone, wood, branches, the breeding chicks, and his newly acquired rabbit family. With his raw building materials temporarily taking up space, he strolled out of the market square and activated his teleport back home. This shopping run turned out to be incredibly successful. The appraised sea patrolling octopus, the breedable rooster and hen, and those rabbit cubs were the real treasures here, the girl probably thought. She was fine as long as she broke even, but to him, this price was dirt cheap. The moment he teleported back home, the system panel flashed with a new notification. He was now raising a level 2C patrolling octopus juvenile. Its location was tracked on the map, but it was hungry with only 10 health. It only ate liquid or powdered food, and a new free-range marker appeared. Opening it, he found the little octopus right at his toes, completely free. It crawled right off his fingers, sliding down his body to the ground. He watched it scurry around, surprised it did not just head straight for the water. Stepping back 2 careful paces, his eyes locked onto the tiny pink speck. Imagine accidentally stepping on your own level 2 pet. Talk about a nightmare. Opening his storage box, he pulled out a single small shrimp bait. He carefully crushed it into a fine powder right inside his palm. He prayed the system would not flag the bait as broken and ruined. If that happened, he had no clue what to feed the little guy. He squatted down as the pink thing chased him, spreading his palm flat on the ground. The little octopus paused, spinning twice in place as if it finally understood. It crawled onto his palm, but only ate the fully powdered parts. He had to crush the larger chunks even finer for it to swallow. Once it finished eating, the creature suddenly pulled in its tiny tentacles. It curled into a ball and went completely still. He told it to stay put. Gently lifting it off his palm, he placed it under the windowsill. He set it right beside a flower pot filled with level 2 soil. With the little pet settled, he could finally get back to work. The trees were not ready, so he harvested 11 flower pot plants first. He got 1 massive cabbage and 2 giant scallions with huge white stalks. The leaves were over a meter long, enough to last him ages. Next were 2 garlic plants yielding 8 thick cloves and edible scapes. Then came 2 large ginger plants and 2 soybean plants pulled by the roots. They instantly crumbled into 2 neat piles of soybeans on the ground. Finally, he got 2 peanut plants filled with perfect shelled pods. With 6 fresh ingredients harvested, his storage box was completely full. So he quickly planted 3 cabbage seeds in level 1 pots. He carefully sorted his inventory, using different boxes for bait, bread, and water. Another box held his tools, iron ore, and some new coarse thread. The 6 fresh ingredients had to sit on the bare ground for now. He watered his new crops and made sure the octopus was safe. Finding it right where he left it, he headed out to chop trees. By 11:40, he harvested 81 weeds, 21 branches, and over 100 wood. He used 100 wood to craft another storage box for his ingredients. The rabbit cubs stayed in his inventory since he lacked resources. Unlike the active little octopus, these cubs remained completely frozen in storage. They clearly needed a proper breeding pen to actually come alive. Only the sea-patrolling octopus was considered a free-roaming island pet. This creature could live freely alongside him once it was appraised. And freed from its water sphere, it could never return to an inventory slot. It had to be carried or held, which was exactly why other players always camped outside the appraisal rooms, hoping to spot one and buy it the moment it appeared, with his field already harvested. Nothing else pressing, he processed all his branches into sawdust to free up space and reinforced the island again, making 14 foundation stones with materials to spare, leaving only 22 square meters of his land still unreinforced. Showing the basic foundation in its completely barren state, the house and processing tables took up 12 square meters, so he moved his 11 flower pots and 3 storage boxes out onto the unreinforced ground, successfully freeing up 30 whole blocks. For new resource growth, standing in the doorway, he looked at the soil in a fantastic mood, cradling the spherical little octopus in his hands as he waited for the noon refresh. Honestly, 30 plots promising resources is a goldmine waiting to happen. Forward 2, at noon, light shimmered across the island, bringing 3 kinds of basic resources onto the cleared soil. Over 20 markers popped up on the beach alongside 5 supply crates, all of them level 2. The little octopus rolled over, and its curled pink body stretched out a few tentacles that had already doubled in length and began crawling around. It felt close to him thanks to the identity binding, but it only knew to get close, unaware that careless step could easily wipe out its health, which had risen from 10 to 20. After that first feeding, he told the creature he would gather something fresh for it to eat. He did not dare let the hungry little thing wander the beach alone, because some wandering level 1 beast might swallow it, which would be an absolute tragedy. He cupped his fingers to give the little creature room and carried it safely to the beach and grabbed a small shrimp at 50 health before crushing it and stripping its head and shell. Opening his palm, he mashed the fresh shrimp meat into a paste right next to the little octopus, and it quickly wrapped itself around the food and devoured it completely. Each time it finished a portion, he quickly prepared another. The shrimp were so small that, once headless and shelled, the meat paste was only 2 or 3 times the size of the tiny octopus, yet after 5 portions in a row, it had grown to the size of a soybean and finally crawled up his arm to his shoulder before he could feed it more, at the seam of his loose beginner tank top. It gripped the edge with a few tentacles and curled into a ball, going completely quiet and motionless. How it ate so much he had absolutely no idea, but it had put away over 10 times its own body weight. No point dwelling on it, he picked up the remaining fish and shrimp on the beach to process into bait later, banking another 2,700 hunting experience from the respawned beasts. Then he went to weed his 30 plots that refreshed resources now. Harvesting them made him genuinely happy. 11 weed plots yielded 131 weed, 7 trees gave 75 wood and 18 branches, and 12 ore piles gave 11 iron and 134 stone, 413 experience. In total, and he cleared it all smiling, with the field cleared 5. Level 2 crates appeared at once. That was the best spawn he had seen yet, and chat discussions over the past few days confirmed his luck was easily above average. As for truly blessed, number 7 had once mentioned, spawning 5 level 1 crates. On his very first refresh, he hauled in 10 crates in a single night after expanding and reinforcing his island, even opening a gift pack with 1,000 ocean crystal stones in it. Honestly, some people are just blessed with insane luck, and it was not just him. Other players he saw in the appraisal area today clearly sat on hundreds or thousands of crystal stones. He had yet to even see a single crystal stone gift pack, let alone finding scattered stones inside every crate, and when stones did show, the count was usually under 10. He had finally scraped past 100, only for a single appraisal to leave him with 12. That first crate gave 10 ocean crystal stones, a cooking oil recipe, soil, stone, and some basic materials. And he gladly learned the recipe. The panel showed that 2 units of peanuts, soybeans, or similar crops could be processed into a bottle of cooking oil. The oil's grade followed the raw materials, with no level restriction as long as the materials description said it could be refined. Next up, the second crate held a pickaxe and flint, the third had a felling axe and fishing rod, the fourth 8 crystal stones, some coarse thread, and an axe, the fifth gave 12 crystal stones and a herbivore feed recipe, requiring 5 units of plant material processed into 1 feed at the processing table, with the quality grading by the raw materials. Once he learned it, he could see how the processing of finished food worked. Checking the recipe, he realized that the cabbage, soybeans, and peanuts in his warehouse all fell within range, but with under 5 units of each. Processing remained temporarily locked. He wondered if weeds as plants should work, shaking his head and muttering as he decided their nutrient content was simply too low to qualify as feed. Still, the 5 level 2 crates still gave a solid haul. Not too bad, right? He got 30 ocean crystal stones, 2 axes, a pickaxe, a fishing rod, 5 iron ore, 3 threads, 2 flints, plus 148 soil, 261 stone, and hundreds of wood, weeds, 11 jam-filled breads, 6 loaves, 11 water, and 27 berries. With so much to sort, he spent another 100 wood on a storage chest. After organizing, his slots held only 7 items: the pass, crystal stones, 2 garlic scapes, the wooden stick, and the axe, pickaxe, and fishing rod. That had all lost some durability, meaning they could not stack with the brand new ones inside storage. He could eat the garlic scapes directly since the chests were completely packed anyway. The 5 chests ended up holding food in 1, basic ores, and another, spare tools in the grass basket, plus seaweed and sea worm skins in a third, the 6 harvested ingredients in a 4th, and bait alongside the rooster chick, hen chick, and rabbit litter in the 5th. His inventory was mostly organized for now. He figured he could reinforce another wave of land. Looking over his remaining materials, he had animal cubs but no plan to build a pen yet, since they could sit safely in storage and would only starve without any feed. Perhaps that little girl had sold hers at a loss for exactly that reason, refusing to let them die in her inventory. There was no dilemma. For him, upgrading the island was better anyway. Gripping his remaining resources, he reinforced 15 foundation stones, leaving only 7 land stones in their original state, then turned to the beach, where a single turf needed 50 weeds. He only had 6 units, while 75 stone gave him 15 pebbles, enough to reinforce 3. He placed the beach blocks for now, waiting on the afternoon weed harvest to finish the rest. His island measured 100 square meters, 64 of land with 57 reinforced, 36 of beach. with 13 reinforced, the level 1 wooden cabin, and his level 2 patrolling. Octopus Juvenile resting there, almost there he thought, hoping his good luck would hold out. He could reinforce the entire island by tonight, so he checked the stats and dug into a loaf of bread in high spirits, even if the garlic scapes barely improved. The taste after days of choking down dry bread, he just wanted a change. It was only 12:35, gently touching the tiny octopus clinging to his shoulder, he found. It was secure enough that he could easily leave it there without any worry. Busy morning was finally over, leaving him free to practice his training in peace, and with yesterday's memory fresh in his mind, the first moves did not seem too bad. But after linking 3 of them together perfectly, 1 per second, his legs turned. Straight to jelly, he collapsed right onto the ground, his face twisted in pain. The deep muscle and bone he just trained screamed with a sharp, burning, numb heat, and resting there he felt a bit frustrated, though he knew exactly why it happened, yesterday. He took long breaks between positions, never realizing how brutal the training was. When executed at high speed, it was a whole different beast. Haste makes waste, and this had to be done step by step. Laying flat, he rested for a few minutes before crawling back up to set a new, temporary rule. 1. Just one single move, followed by a 2-minute break, or even more if needed. He had to listen to his body instead of breaking it on day 1. He was still mortal, after all. A few simple level-up points would not make him godlike. So he comforted himself with the simple truth that true strength takes time. Meanwhile, the pink little octopus woke up an hour after overeating and crawled right back into his palm, hungry once more. He sighed, wondering how it was. Already starving, but there was no point arguing with a creature that did not understand him anyway, since its health points rose only when its belly was full. He had to feed it the very second it asked, maybe even giving a little bit extra. Cradling the tiny fellow, he carried it down to the shore where several small shrimp and fish had washed up over the last half hour. They still had over 2 hours left on their timers, meaning there was no immediate rush to collect them while he was focused on practicing his body-strengthening technique. The little octopus happily devoured the crushed seafood he offered, waving its tiny tentacles as its massive appetite grew even larger. This time around, it polished off 10 small fish and shrimp and was still looking for more, so he carried it back inside, crushing a dozen pieces of bait from his storage cabinet, and finally managed to satisfy the little glutton. Satisfied, it climbed right back up to his shoulder, gripped a loose thread on his shirt, curled up tight, and fell fast asleep once more. Looking at the tiny pink ball, he wondered if this creature actually needed water, since it suddenly hit him that the little guy did not seem to care about getting wet at all. At first he feared the sea predators might easily eat it, but a beast like this surely must possess its own powerful survival instincts. Earlier, when he let some seawater pool in his flat palm right on the beach, the hungry little octopus had ignored the ocean entirely, completely focused on its lunch. Water or not, his system panel identified it as a level 2 sea patrolling octopus. Specifically a juvenile with 50 health points and absolutely no negative status tags at all, so it really did not need water. Either way, it did not matter, and once he was sure the little octopus would not slide off his shoulder, he went back to slowly practicing the skill movements one by one, exactly as the system demonstration had shown. Over the last hour, he kept adjusting until settling on a rhythm. He did one movement every 2 minutes, too slow, maybe, but the skill demanded a recovery period, and after testing things, he confirmed that 2 minutes would not let the training heat in his muscles fade away. The pause also kept him from injuring himself or needing a long rest from sheer discomfort, and without distractions, he could manage about 30 movements an hour, which meant the full set would take no more than 4 hours. The only trouble was that the state he dropped into while practicing probably made him look like a man with some sort of severe nerve disorder. For the rest of the afternoon, that was exactly how he cultivated on his little island. He would perform one movement, stop, pull a few weeds, and once his body felt ready, he would run another standard movement, then stop to chop trees, pull weeds, or occasionally strike a pose down on the beach. He even picked up a small crab, crushed it, dropped it into his inventory slot, and twisted his limbs into the next position. It was lucky no one else was around, because anyone caught practicing this would look like a twisted madman after completing one full set of the body strengthening technique in that movement by movement fashion. He collapsed onto his bed to rest, marveling at how intense the afternoons. Training had been. It was not just that he had a touch of social anxiety, because even a born social butterfly would die of embarrassment being watched doing this. No choice, though, cultivation could not stop. While he rested, he opened the chat channel to find it incredibly lively. Someone was challenging all the self-proclaimed lucky players to admit if they had ever actually opened a skill book. Another player was stunned. They did not even know books existed in this world, having assumed there was only equipment. A third claimed to have fished one up at noon, while a fourth snatched a water arrow skill book from the market for 5,000 ocean crystal stones. The rest were complaining that those prices were simply too high for them to afford anything. Everyone in the feed agreed that finding a skill book was pure luck. Even the water arrow buyer had to agree with that. Among the chatter, he spotted player number 7 again. He was not the only lucky survivor, but he kept showing up. Seriously, is this guy ever offline? And with everyone scrambling to make a name for themselves, he was easily the most relentless of them all. From their talk, it was clear these players spent most of their time in Trade City, only returning to their own islands to open supply crates and upgrade. There were still resources to gather. So once his harvest was done, he could fish and wait until 6. When the map system showed him resources were ready, he got out of bed and went outside to pull weeds and chop trees. While practicing his physical technique, he gathered 3 separate harvests, collecting 415 pieces of wood. He ends up with 62 branches, 713 weeds, and over 1,000 gathering experience. That is over 1,000 points, but leveling up his gathering now requires 3,200. He is still pretty far off, though his hunting skill is almost there at 98. His harvest of 3 cabbages was already done earlier that afternoon, and since there are no seeds left, he stacks the empty pots and packs them away. With just 30 minutes left until 6 p.m., he pulls out materials to upgrade the beach. The new upgrade requires turf, pebbles, and sawdust, so he starts. He turns 700 weeds into 14 turf and grinds 175 stones. This lets him reinforce another 7 square meters of his 36-meter beach. With 16 sections still left, he is out of materials and has to wait. The whole construction process goes by fast. Carrying the sleeping little octopus, he heads down to the shoreline. He sits right at the edge of the water, baits his hook, and casts. Every single catch is a success, bringing in tiny green fish and little crabs. He earns a point of fishing experience each time, and his speed is improving. Casts take under 5 minutes, with the quickest bite landing in just 30 seconds. The level 1 fishing rod only has 10 durability points to its name. Within 30 minutes, he completely breaks it, so he grabs a fresh rod to continue. The new rod takes a bit longer, but right at 6 p.m., the notifications flash. The island resources have officially refreshed, and new supplies are spawning. Just then, his float plunges deep. Watch closely, this is definitely another big one. He grips the rod tightly as a massive force drags from the deep. The system identifies it as a level 2 black fish with 2,000 health. This carnivorous beast weighs 98 pounds, a common predator in these waters. With such a massive health pool, the massive fish fights back incredibly hard. He watches his rod's durability rapidly ticking down, then glances back toward the island. Using the momentum of the struggle, he swings the massive catch toward the trees. The target is a thick patch of saplings. The fish flies through the air. It crashes heavily onto the solid ground the very instant it lands. At that exact second, his fishing rod snaps, completely drained of its remaining durability. He has no time to grab a basket, so he grabs his simple wooden stick. Running straight over, he begins relentlessly battering the thrashing creature on its head. Each strike only chips away double-digit damage because of its incredibly thick skin. Fortunately, those small saplings are tough, pinning the struggling predator in place. The fish thrashes wildly and shatters some wood, but it cannot escape the trap. He realizes right then that practicing his combat skills has truly paid off. Once the monster's health falls to just a few hundred, it breaks free. He quickly shifts his weight, slipping naturally into his familiar cultivation forms. Striking with perfect precision, his wooden weapon drives straight into its eye. The system registers a weak point critical hit, draining 520 health. Another critical strike follows for 312 damage, securing the kill. He gains 5 hunting experience, 58 pounds of level 2 meat, and bones. There are also 8 units of level 2 black fish skin up for grabs. Taking down a half-health target in just 2 strikes is incredibly satisfying. It easily exceeds his expectations, leaving him slumped on the ground, catching his breath. Gasping for breath, his wooden stick has only 9 durability left, yet his grin grows. He had not planned any of this, he had simply spun around to dodge the charge. Rather than waste a perfect close-range opening, he simply struck on instinct, all along. He assumed this technique only strengthened his body, judging by its name and training, no matter. Finding it worked in a real fight was a great surprise. It was a quiet, welcome surprise. Meanwhile, the little octopus had been jostled. Awake a step too late, it looked around, found nothing but still sensed how worn out he was sitting there hauling in air, leading to a simple conclusion. Its provider was tired, so it would wait a bit longer. Once he had rested, it would ask for food again. He reached out and caught the creature as it stretched its tentacles on his shoulder, cradling it to check its state. Health 100, extremely hungry, the system noted, but able to wait. A nice touch. The little creature understood that he could not feed it this exact second, so it did not mind sitting with an empty stomach while he rested. He did not quite follow, but he told it hungry means eat, and pulled out a chunk of black fish meat weighing 1 pound. It was solid meat with no bones. The panel noted the level 2 black fish had a coarse texture, but could be processed into food and could be fed to carnivores. The chunks were large and lacked any silky texture. Unlike delicate fish, he meant to tear off a tiny bit to crush, but the little octopus claimed the entire chunk. It was only about the size of a tiny peanut, yet it scrambled up and spread all 8 tentacles to embrace it, stretching them out over 10 centimeters. If meat was given, it would hold on tight and eat, even if it could not carry the whole heavy thing on its own. Can it even chew that? He just let the hungry little guy eat. His breathing settled after a few minutes as he watched it nibble the chunk. First, he crafted a new wooden stick, since the old one was nearly out of durability. Easy decision. He gathered the wood the black fish had scattered around the smashed small trees. Wood could be harvested by axe or sheer brute force, and the ones the fish wrecked had already turned into dropped materials. The catch: no gathering experience here. He still felled the remaining trees, pulled weeds, and swung his pickaxe one-handed into the ore piles, banking over 200 wood, some branches, weeds, stones, and 12 iron. Or the harvest only gave 57 experience, since the rest had been destroyed rather than gathered, yielding only 439. Gathering experience. His left hand cradled the little octopus its meal while his right hand finished gathering. Afterward, he headed to the beach, dealing with 32 level 1 fish and shrimp scattered across 20 plots. Seeing the creature struggle with the heavy slab, he peeled a small shrimp, crushed it, and placed it beside the tentacles, but with the black fish meat nearby, the shrimp was completely ignored. Once he cleared the zones that could refresh resources at any time, he opened the supply crates one by one. Only 2 had refreshed tonight, just 2. That giant blackfish probably ate a giant chunk of his luck, he joked, refusing to admit his fortune had simply run dry. The first level 2 crate rewards him with 18 ocean crystal stones and an inventory expansion voucher, adding 3 slots, 32 soil, 38 stone, 39 wood, 48 weed, 4 gem-filled bread, 10 berries, and 2 water. That inventory slot expansion voucher makes his eyes light up. Watch this: 3 slots added instantly. He uses it right away, instantly expanding his inventory to 15 slots. Someone in the channel once mentioned that the sales area refreshed an expansion voucher almost every cycle. Those who could afford it snapped them up, while everyone else left them listed until the next refresh cleared them. The voucher always appeared, though the extra slots varied, but the unit price was fixed at 1,000 ocean crystal stones per slot. Rumor says a 100-slot voucher, once refreshed for 100,000 ocean crystal stones. Since nobody could afford it, the item sat there until the refresh wiped it away. His hands tremble as he opens the second level 2 crate. Inside, it drops 5 ocean crystal stones and a water purifier manufacturing recipe, plus a level 2 cotton cloth clothing recipe. 35 soil, 42 stone, 35 wood, 4 weed, 2 bread, 4 berries, and 5 water. The little octopus, still gnawing on black fish meat in his left hand, stops eating in confusion. It taps his palm twice with tiny tentacles, as if asking what happened. He smiles. Our luck is getting better, little guy. he says with a grin, flashing a full set of white teeth. Honestly, it is a miracle that without a toothbrush or toothpaste, he has no plaque or bad breath. His teeth are actually healthier than ever. The little octopus has no idea what he said, but it knows. His mood is great and there is no danger, so it eats. In peace, he jokingly asks if it plans to keep eating like that. Then walks to the beach. Squatting down, he washes his hand, grabs jam-filled bread, and starts dinner. He lifts his left hand to watch the little octopus, clutching the blackfish meat, suckers tearing off tiny pieces, and feeding them to its mouth bit by bit. Before, he had mashed small shrimp and fish into a paste, so it never had to work this hard, but now it wants to build strength and refuses help. After eating 2 pieces of jam bread and some water, he heads to the furniture crafting table to check the materials for the water purifier. The recipe requires 1,000 wood, 50 iron ore, and 10 flint, against which he has 1,130 wood, 40 iron ore, and 10 flint. The system describes it as a distillation device that uses clean seawater to produce drinking water every 10 minutes. Durability stands at 1,000, purifying 1,000 bottles. He remembers distillation from school, but classes were packed, and he only watched the teacher work. To just watch the teacher demonstrate the apparatus from across the room. He only knows it exists. Right now, he is short 10 iron ores. He will get it later. He walks to the equipment table, curious about the level 2 cotton clothing, even though he cannot craft it yet. The system lists 10 level 2 cotton cloth and 5 level 2 cotton threads to make a comfortable cotton top. It granted plus 5 defense and 5% recovery, but he had neither. So he did not dwell on it, setting both recipes aside to grab reinforcement materials. Upgrading his island required soil, weeds, and sawdust for every single cubic meter. Luckily, he had plenty of resources to reinforce all 7 of his remaining foundations. Once those stones were upgraded, his status panel updated with the new island details. His land was 100 square meters, with 64 blocks fully upgraded to level 1. The beach had 20 reinforced blocks, a level 1 hut, and a level 2 pet. His young sea-patrolling octopus was there too, resting on the fully upgraded land. Knowing the main land was secure brought instant relief, though the beach remained unfinished. He left 16 fragile corners alone, since they required 1,600 weeds to complete. If his luck held out through the night, he might just pull it off. His storage box showed a bit over 300 weeds, enough for 3 beach blocks. Since reinforcing also refreshed his resource nodes, he did not hesitate to start. Spending 300 weeds, 75 stones, and 25 sawdust left him 13 blocks short. He gently told the little octopus to take its time and keep eating slowly. The tiny creature sat in his left palm, having already chewed through half a pound of meat. Sighing, he placed the meat and the little octopus down together on the narrow wooden windowsill. The little octopus raised its tentacles and paused its meal, watching him with curiosity. Seeing that he was only standing on the open ground outside, the pet relaxed. He began stretching, raising his hands, kicking his legs, and twisting his waist. Realizing its master was not abandoning it, the creature happily went back to eating. He kept a comfortable rhythm, practicing while watching the bustling chat channel. Right then, one particular message stood out among the sea of text. A furious player was daring someone to come rob him on his own island. He repeatedly insisted he was not selling, angry that he was being hounded constantly. The pest had chased him across half the market stalls, refusing to back down. On its own, the angry rant meant nothing, but the replies triggered a sense of déjà vu. Other players chimed in, asking if the victim had recently appraised a new pet. They quickly named player number 7 as the shameless guy hounding everyone in the area. He would pressure them to sell their pets, which everyone agreed was completely disgusting. Since Trade City prevented physical contact, the pets at least could not be stolen. If contact were allowed, those creatures would have been taken by force long ago. Some joked that number 7 was trying to build some kind of pet paradise. Or maybe he actually ate them to absorb their power through a devouring skill. Player number 7 himself finally chimed in, claiming his skill was simply reinforcing pets. He argued that if someone refused to sell, he simply moved on without forcing them. The others quickly shot back, pointing out that spamming requests hundreds of times was coercion. Asking relentlessly would not change anyone's mind, but the messages just kept flying by. Even though the chat scrolled rapidly, he realized who that pushy trader actually was. He bought pets to reinforce them and guard his island. They could even automate daily tasks, which explained why they were so highly valued. Once mature, his octopus could patrol the beach and gather weak resources. Other players likely had similar setups, keeping them competitive in this harsh world. That automated labor explained why some survivors could stay in Trade City so long. Still, that persistent pet collector was a massive, annoying threat to watch out for. He was practicing with slow, relaxed movements when a sudden warning popped up. It warned him that marine life was attacking his island, right in front of his eyes. The moment the alert appeared, he saw the invader. His screen identified it as Level 3 mutated kelp with 5,000 health, a highly aggressive sea plant. That could entangle, suck blood, and cause severe corrosion. It was hostile to any living thing but terrified of fire. The wild, thrashing kelp stood over 10 meters tall with 5 massive blades, each spreading half a meter wide. And right now it was thrashing right against his outermost beach foundation. Fortunately, he could read its stats, and the monster did not seem able to reach inland yet, only chipping away at his borders bit by bit. He quickly built a bonfire right in the center of the island, in front of his shelter using 10 wood and 1 flint. It was past 7 in the evening, and weeds had overgrown the area, forcing him to clear the wild grass first. Before he could set up the flames, the system said this fire would burn for 3 hours to provide light and heat, though water could extinguish it, and hinted that some monsters absolutely hated the heat. As the flames erupted, instant freeze, the kelp stopped its attack right then and there. Its massive blades flattened against the dark water. It truly feared fire. Exactly as the system claimed, the warm glow covered his entire 100 square meter island, forcing the kelp to float completely motionless. The defense worked beautifully, but the beast was still lurking, just waiting. He quickly grabbed 2 blocks of soil and 5 stones to patch up the damaged beach foundation. The kelp could still squirm, but as long as his fire blazed, it dared not cross into the light. He kept an eye on its twitching form while reinforcing his borders, trying to figure out how to destroy this terrifying threat. He recalled reading posts from other survivors who were attacked by sea beasts. But back then, he was just a spectator. Now, the danger was at his doorstep. A single slap from this kelp could destroy a reinforced stone in 4 hits. If he had not lit the fire so quickly, his inland base would be ruined. This thing possessed raw power that dwarfed those basic crabs and sea worms. Suddenly, his little pet octopus slid down from the window, crawling over to his leg before climbing up to his shoulder. It was also terrified of the heat. The dry, scorching flames were lethal to water creatures, not just the kelp. Since almost everything in the sea feared fire, yet the little creature tried to communicate. He watched its little tentacles wave, completely unable to understand what it wanted. His confusion only made the poor little thing grow more and more anxious. It tapped his shoulder, scrambled down to the dirt, and braved the intense heat, reaching 2 of its tender tentacles directly toward the blazing fire. He quickly grabbed it and pulled back, shouting, "Are you insane? You will get roasted alive." Fortunately, the bonfire only blazed within a limited area, sparing the crops nearby, but just because the flames were contained did not mean anything. Jumping into them would survive. As that realization hit him, a sudden thought clicked. His little companion was trying to emphasize that marine monsters fear fire. The kelp had instantly played dead, just seeing the light from a distance. But what would happen if he brought the heat directly to its face? Would never approach a flame on its own. He could find a way to throw the kelp into the bonfire himself. He had to admit it, the little creature was smarter than him. He told it that, though its reckless plan was definitely a massive gamble. But if the beast truly understood him, it wouldn't have needed to show off at all. He tapped the little octopus on its head, let it curl up on his shoulder, and squeezed it twice to let the creature know he understood. Once he was sure it would stay settled on his clothes, he checked the time, then waited about 10 minutes before going to collect the 7:30 batch of resources. The kelp was playing dead good. His bonfire would easily last 3 hours. Next, he recalled his hunting experience was fully maxed out from slaying that massive black fish and crushing those small fish and shrimp, so he clicked the panel to upgrade his combat power. It rose. He was now island master number 99,111, Yehang combat power 11 with his strengthening technique as an enhancement type skill. Hunting was at level 1 with 35 of 200, fishing at level 0 with 65 of 100, gathering at level 5 with 2633 of 3200, and planting at level 0 with 29 of 100, his island. Held its 100 square meters, the level 1 wooden hut, and the level 2C. Trolling Octopus Juvenile, his equipment, the Novice Vest Novice. Shorts level 1 straw sandals and a level 1 fishing rod, once he tidied. Everything up, he looked at the open space and used his last 9 flints with wood. To craft more bonfires, he lit all 9, arranging them in a rectangle on the open ground right in front of the house, 4 to the south, 4 to the north end, 3 each to the east and west, leaving 2 empty gaps in the middle. On the island, bonfires counted as furniture, so he could shift their positions using the map. As long as they weren't extinguished, now he was absolutely certain of one thing: the mutated kelp had massive destructive power, but the very instant it saw firelight, it entered its play-dead state and wouldn't resist him at all. He shook the fishing rod to test the feel and got to work. The panel now showed the mutated kelp at 5,000 health, afraid of fire, playing dead, it's old. Aggression tags completely wiped. Standing inside the circle of bonfires, he cast his rod, and with his increasingly proficient technique, hooked the edge of a kelp blade directly. The instant it hit, the underwater portion of the kelp kept its attack power, secreting a corrosive liquid to destroy his hook. But what he wanted was to lift it slightly in the moment before the hook melted. He switched the rod from his right hand to his left, using his left to pull the edge of the kelp slightly out of the water and cast a fresh rod with his right to snag the raised portion again. The part of the blade that left the water froze completely motionless under the intense firelight, showing no reaction even when hooked. The hooks dragged the blade slowly out of the sea, and as much as he pulled out, that much went into play-dead mode. When one full blade lay on the island, the light and warmth of the 10 bonfires dried the sticky, corrosive juice on it rapidly. Once that layer had hardened into white frost, he stepped forward, lifted the blade with a low-durability wooden stick, and clamped it. With a second, holding the 2 sticks, he flipped and rolled the blade over and over, winding it up without ever touching it, keeping it inside the warm. He pulls it up through the firelight without any resistance, roll after roll. The 12-meter blade winds into a thick bundle until he finally spots the stalk. Normal kelp is usually just a single piece, but this mutated monster has a single stalk sprouting over a dozen giant blades that he saw earlier. Those were just the exposed portion. Now the stalk is finally out. Dragging the soaking blades right out of the deep, cold seawater, he decides to roast it very slowly, dragging the coiled, playing dead kelp straight into the 2 empty gaps right in the center of his bonfire ring. Once it is set down, he steps back to stand at a safe distance. It stays in that playing dead state, since the bonfires do not touch it. The plant does not move. After a few minutes, the liquid on its skin dries to a white frost. As moisture drains, its health finally starts dropping. 10 ticks of -1 health flash at once, roughly every 10 seconds under the heat of 10 bonfires. After about half an hour, the kelp is chipped down by 2,000, leaving 3,000. He must keep the roast slow. Shoving it directly into the flames drops its health faster, but if this thing attacks his shelter, and trust me, it easily could kill him instantly. No way he wants to gamble with his life here. As the flames cook it, the level 3 mutated kelp loses its moisture, making the damage intervals shrink rapidly, and when its health hits 2,000, it enters a berserk state, though its deep terror of fire keeps it frozen in those 2 safe, flame-free gaps. An hour and a half later, the kill notification pops up. 25 experience points, 1 level 3 unknown mutated plant, and 10 units of level 3 corrosive powder. Knowing the kelp was trapped and its health was doomed, he calmly returned to his training, stretching and moving around the warm bonfire circle. Now with the fight done, his bonus experience still rolls in with that sweet 5 times multiplier. Still, a level 3 unknown plant is a mystery. A level 2 costs 100 crystals to appraise, and he wonders if level 3 will jump to 1,000. He decides to store it away and check the price on his next market visit. As for the level 3 corrosive powder, that is a total jackpot. The system panel lists it as a highly toxic agent he can slip into food. Just 1 unit drains 1,000 health and inflicts a corroded state for 10 seconds, during which they lose 300 health per second, along with weakness, pain, and confusion. Staring at the powder, he realizes how incredibly vicious that mutated kelp poison really was. Not bad, he thinks with a sigh. since sacrificing 2 rods and 10 bonfires was a hefty price. Once lit, there is no packing them up unless he drags them to the beach to be put out by seawater, since it is rare to have so many fires burning at night. He leaves his pet octopus on the window with a tasty piece of black fish. When the little creature sees him step into the bonfire ring, it flails its tentacles before lazily hugging the food to keep eating. It completely understands, and it definitely hates the flames. But his owner happened to love those dangerous things, standing right in the middle of the fires to feel the warmth, shortening the interval between his training sets by 10 seconds in that tiny 2-square-meter clearing, with the constant interruptions and pauses to gather small shrimp and fish when the bonfires timed out and vanished. It was already 11:30 when he finished his third training session. He quickly gathered all his resources, organizing his inventory and placing the materials into storage, harvesting 633 wood, 72 branches, and 718 weeds tonight. The island spans 64 square meters, the house taking 4, the 4 processing tables taking up 8, while the 4 outdoor storage boxes took another 4, and stacked flower pots took 2, leaving 46 plots open for resources, just like that, even though the earlier bonfires had blocked growth across more than a dozen square meters. It was still an amazing haul. His status panel showed hunting at level 1 with 143 out of 200, fishing at level 0, gathering at level 5 with 3361, 3200, and planting at level 0 with 29. Gathering was clearly the skill to level up. Hunting only improved when creatures invaded the sandy beach. Fishing consumed too much time, and planting was stuck because he had flower pots but 0 seeds. With his gathering bar completely full, he tapped on it. Gathering hit level 6. Combat power rose by 1, resetting to 161 out of 6400, bringing his total power to 12, with only 10 minutes remaining. He upgraded the beach again, then checked the channel where silent players had stayed silent all day but were suddenly posting as midnight neared. All sorts of messages scrolled past, vanishing instantly. Absolutely wild. 10 minutes was plenty of time. He quickly processed the turf, the pebbles, and turned the dry branches into sawdust. With the materials ready, he reinforced the beach near the edge 8 more times before midnight, counting the single block that was destroyed and rebuilt. The beach now had 27 level 1 reinforced plots alongside 9 basic ones. Now, he could wait for the resource refresh with total peace of mind, maybe even reinforcing the entire beach again before going to sleep. Standing by the window, he commented on how much it could eat, tapping the pink little octopus on its tentacle, noting it did not even sleep anymore but simply digested its food while eating. Previously, it slept after eating its fill, waking up with more health before eating again. Now it skipped sleep entirely, doing nothing but eating. Its health had already climbed to 285. Rising as it ate, he watched the max health notifications pop up every few minutes. The octopus lifted the tentacle he had touched and pushed his hand aside, telling him to leave it alone. He told it to eat slowly, asking if it needed any water. He placed the octopus and a slab of black fish meat in his palm and brought them to the beach, dipping his finger in seawater to hold it near the tiny creature. He wanted to see if it simply forgot about water or truly had 0 interest in it. Surprisingly, this time the little octopus seemed to understand his intentions. It reached out with 2 tentacles, touching his finger with its suckers to absorb those tiny drops of water. After drinking that tiny bit, however, it showed no reaction, going straight back to eating. He told it to mix things up. Then he told it, eat the sea fish, drink the seawater. He found it amusing, so he dips his finger again and brings it over. Just like that, he feeds it a bite. The little creature takes a sip, never letting go of the meat, its maximum health steadily rising. The water has the same healing effect. They keep playing this game until the midnight refresh hits. Suddenly, midnight hits. The system alerts him that resource nodes are spawning everywhere. Small tags for shrimp and fish flicker across the surrounding beach. 6 supply crates have landed. Cradling the octopus, he heads over to open them. First, he opens them all. They yield 48 ocean crystals, 3 felling axes, and a single pickaxe, 2 fishing rods, 3 portions of coarse thread, and 11 pieces of flint, 18 iron ore, 171 soil, 318 stone, 344 wood, 402 weed, 17 bread, 32 berries, and 15 bottles of water, basic survival supplies. Next, he equips a new piece of gear and learns 3 recipes: the pants, are level 1 coarse cloth, boosting his defense and agility by 1. With recovery speed up by 1% the moment he wears them. His old shorts vanish. They are rough but surprisingly comfortable. Maybe because after days in baggy shorts, any pair of long pants feels like a massive upgrade. The first recipe is for carnivore feed, turning 5 portions of meat. Ingredients into a single unit of feed. Its level depends on the raw. Materials basically identical to the herbivore recipe, just swapping plants out for meat. The second recipe is fruit juice, combining 3 portions of fruit and 1 bottle of water. The juice level and final effects depend on the fruit used, with the only difference from jam being the extra water. The third recipe is the marine aquaculture pond. It demands 500 stones, 200 wood, 50 soil, and a 5 by 5 by 5 construction to raise his own marine life. It has 1000 durability. His immediate reaction is to look down at the tiny octopus in his left palm. The little guy clearly loves seawater, but it is way too weak right now, and definitely not ready for the beach. There is absolutely no rush to build the pond anyway, especially since it takes 25 square meters. On an island this small, a massive tank several times larger then his house would leave absolutely no space for resources to grow. After opening all those crates, he checks his materials, leaves the little octopus safe on the windowsill, and heads out to harvest weed, chop wood, and mine the ore piles. He gathers 166 weed, 113 wood, 18 branches, over 200 stone, 21 iron, and 580 experience. Still not enough materials, he mutters. The beach reinforcement requires turf, pebbles, and sawdust. With 9 blocks left to finish, he only has enough for 6, so he reinforces whatever he can.